Chapter 151. Night fell and a bright moon hung in the sky. The bright moonlight flowed down like water, and the branches and leaves of the trees swayed gently with the wind. The shadows cast by the trees were like seaweed swaying gently in the water, quiet and serene. Chu Luiyue was leaning against a thick tree. Beside her, Rong Xiu was also sitting on the ground, planning to help her clean her wounds. The most serious injury on her body was the broken bone in her shoulder. If it was not treated in time, it would not be good in the future. It was a good thing that even without her teaching, Rong Xiu seemed to be very familiar with this. His movements were gentle and quick. "I'm helping you set your bones. Bear with it," Rong Xiu said in a low voice as his slender hand gently pressed down on her shoulder. Chu Luiyue nodded. She had suffered this kind of injury countless times in her previous life, so it was nothing. Rong Xiu gently placed his hand on her shoulder and then pushed. Chu Luiyue's body trembled from the pain. Rong Xiu looked at her and saw that the young girl's face was pale. Because of the pain, her forehead was covered in sweat. But from beginning to end, she did not make a sound as she forcefully swallowed the pain. Rong Xiu's eyes were slightly cold. He felt a bit of regret in his heart that he did not properly torture that bastard before taking care of him. His movements were even more gentle as he took off his white coat. With a chila sound, he tore it into strips and wrapped Chu Luiyue's wounds. Chu Luiyue heard this sound and turned her head to look. She could not help but smile. "Your Highness, your clothes are very expensive. Isn't this too wasteful?" Rong Xiu knew that she was teasing him, so he also smiled. "It's no problem, it's just a piece of clothing. You can just compensate me with another one later." Chu Luiyue raised her brows. "You really don't want to suffer a loss. Your Highness is really stingy." Rong Xiu's movements paused as his smile deepened. "I've always been generous, but I'm stingy towards you." Chu Luiyue felt as if his heart was being gently rubbed by something. After this incident, an invisible barrier seemed to have been broken between her and Rong Xiu. Although neither of them said anything, their relationship did seem to be much closer than before. "I'm already used to His Highness' stinginess, but I'm curious about something. Why did you come so coincidentally?" This place was 2 days away from the imperial capital, so it was absolutely impossible for Rong Xiu to arrive here in an instant. That meant that it was very likely that he had arrived here a long time ago. Rong Xiu's expression did not change. Rong Xiu said that she wanted to hunt a demonic beast, and it just so happened that there was a demonic beast tied here, so I came to take a look personally. I plan to choose a suitable one and bring it back to her. Rong Xiu was the current 8th princess. She was already 13 years old this year, which was indeed the age to find a magical beast to hunt. But this kind of thing could be left to his subordinates. Why did he have to do it himself? Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. "You really care about the 8th princess." Rong Xiu did not mind that she had seen through him. Instead, he looked at her steadily. "Yes, I do care about her very much." It went without saying who he was referring to. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat, and she did not know how to reply. At this moment, Shuai finally came back. It walked to Chu Luiyue and put down the thing in its mouth. It was the blood ferret. When Shuai left earlier, Chu Luiyue thought that since it was a high-level demonic beast, it should be very sensitive to the aura of other demonic beasts, so she asked it to help find this little thing. After the mountain collapsed, she actually did not have much hope in her heart, but this little thing risked its life for her, so she still remembered it. She did not expect to really find it. But at this moment, the little thing was lying on the ground, motionless. Chu Luiyue checked it and found that it was still breathing weakly. She immediately heaved a sigh of relief. It was still alive. Sensing her touch, the little thing's tail suddenly moved, and then it slowly opened its eyes. Those round eyes clearly reflected Chu Luiyue's face. It looked at her in a daze and blinked its eyes as if it had not reacted. Chu Luiyue carefully picked it up and pinched its ears. "It's okay, now we are safe." Only then did the little thing realize that it was not dreaming. Its eyes widened, and then it hugged Chu Luiyue's thumb and cried. It thought that it was already dead. It thought that it would never see her again. Chu Luiyue saw that it was crying so sadly and she found it funny and sad at the same time. "Okay, come back with me. In the future this kind of thing will not happen again, okay?" This little thing was very congenial to her and she liked it very much. Now that it was still alive, it was best to bring it back. Although it could not be treated as a magical beast to hunt, it could be treated as a pet magical beast to accompany her. When the little thing heard this, it realized that it could always be by her side in the future, and it could not help but cry even louder. After a long time it stopped, but its body was still sobbing, and its eyes and nose were red. It looked pitiful and cute. It saw that Chu Luiyue's shoulder was injured, so it obediently stayed by her side. Rong Xiu looked at it from the side and suddenly said, "It's really lucky." Chu Liwei was in a good mood at this moment, and her eyes were curved. "Yes. Previously, in order to help me, it was attacked by the black flying python, and then the mountain collapsed." As Chu Liwei spoke, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. This little thing was only a third-grade magical beast, and the kind that did not have much fighting power. How could it have withstood the black flying python's angry attack? Moreover, after the entire mountain collapsed, the situation was so chaotic, but it actually survived safely. Chu Liwei held it in her hand again and looked at it over and over again. The little thing seemed to be tickled, and it rolled around happily in her hand. Chu Liwei was stunned. This little thing did not seem to be seriously injured. Other than a few scratches on its body, it was completely fine. Now that it was alive and kicking, who could imagine what it had gone through before? The most important thing was that Wanling Mountain was the black flying python's territory, and all the magical beasts here obeyed its orders due to the difference in level. The magical beast's attack was the best evidence. But this little thing seemed not to be affected. Not only did it not attack her together with the other magical beasts, but it also stood on her side and went against the black flying python. The more Chu Liwei thought about it, the more she found it strange. She carefully checked the little thing again, but did not find anything unusual. The little thing hugged her finger intimately, and its furry tail rubbed against her finger. Just as Chu Liwei was in a daze, Rong Xiu suddenly stretched out his hand and took the little thing over. "You need to rest now. Think about these things in the future." Chu Liwei felt that he was right, and she nodded. The little thing was suddenly forced away from the warm place, and it immediately woke up and stared fiercely at Rong Xiu. Rong Xiu glanced at it lightly. The little thing was frightened, and it immediately retracted its gaze, and obediently turned around to wait. "Why do I smell blood on Xue Xue?" Chu Liwei asked curiously. Although the smell was very faint, it was indeed there. And it was obviously stronger than the smell after the black flying python was killed. Xue Xue froze, and it turned around and lay on the ground, pretending that it did not hear anything. Rong Xiu paused and quietly changed the topic. "When you've recovered a little, we'll go back to the imperial capital tomorrow," Hu Yao said. "You'll get a better reading experience from love." Chapter 152. 2 days later, the teachers and students returned to the academy, but they were not as excited and happy as they were when they left. The demonic beast riot in Wanling Mountain had caused many casualties. They were already very lucky to be able to come back alive, not to mention other things. The news quickly spread in the imperial capital and caused a huge uproar. Peach Garden. Several elders and teachers gathered together. The atmosphere in the hall was very depressing. After a long time, Elder Sun sighed. "Martial Uncle is in seclusion these days. When he comes out, I will report this matter and accept my punishment." Everyone looked at each other and comforted him. "Elder Sun, this is indeed an accident. It's not your fault. Yes, Wanling Mountain has been very peaceful for decades. It's not the first time we went there to hunt demonic beasts. Who would have thought that this time? Elder Sun, if you didn't give the order to retreat in time, our casualties would be even greater. You don't have to blame yourself anymore." Elder Sun waved his hand, indicating that they didn't need to say any more. "A mistake is a mistake. We have to clean up the mess now. Is the casualty list out?" Wen Yin immediately said. "It's done. Ignoring the minor injuries, 57 people are seriously injured and 14 people are dead." Elder Sun slowly clenched his hand. "Why are there so many? Didn't you say there were 8 people?" "Yes, there were indeed 10 people who died at the beginning. Later, Yi Qing found the bodies of the 2 missing people under a cliff somewhere." "What about the other 2? Wen Yin carefully looked at Elder Sun's expression and lowered his voice. "The remaining 2 are Chu Luiwei and Gu Mingzhu. The mountain collapsed, and the 2 of them were swallowed into the black whirlpool of the black flying python. How could they survive? Therefore the 2 of them were also included in the death list." Elder Sun was stunned when he heard their names. He was silent for a while. "Inform their families. In addition, our academy will be fully responsible for this matter. Try your best to compensate them." "Yes. Gu family." Slap. The crisp sound of a slap broke the silence in the room. Gu Mingfeng's head was tilted, and his face quickly became red and swollen. "How did you take care of your sister? Why is she the only one who died when so many people are fine? Gu Mingfeng, explain it to me today. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving this house." The Gu family's patriarch, Gu Wenhui, was furious. He slapped Gu Mingfeng as if it wasn't enough, so he slapped him again. There was a clear palm print on Gu Mingfeng's face. He looked at Gu Wenhui expressionlessly. It was just a glance and then he lowered his eyes. This was his so-called father. In his eyes there was only Gu Mingzhu. As for him, he was just an eyesore. She was not in the same team as me, so I don't know how she died. How dare you lie? Gu Wenhui was so angry that he kicked Gu Mingfeng in the chest and shouted angrily, her profound formation black crystal was used, but she didn't survive. Other than you, who else knows that she has this thing on her? You've always been jealous of her. This time, weren't you the one who stole her things and tried to kill her? How could I, Gu Wenhui, give birth to a thing that is worse than an animal like you? There was a numbing pain in his chest and Gu Mingfeng's face was a little pale. Gu Wenhui used all his strength in this kick. If not for the fact that he was a mystic master and his physical strength was not that strong, this kick would have taken Gu Mingfeng's life. I don't know how she died. Gu Mingfeng repeated mechanically and indifferently. Besides, even elder son couldn't save her. Father, do you think that a profound formation black crystal can save her? Gu Wenhui was so angry that he laughed. Good. You even know how to talk back now. Your wings have hardened. Why aren't you the one who died? Why aren't you the one who died? Gu Mingfeng's eyelids twitched violently. In an instant he felt that a part of his heart had completely collapsed. I should have seen it clearly. What was he? He was just a lowly existence that Gu Wenhui saw as a stain. Now, this so-called father wanted nothing more than to use his life in exchange for Gu Mingzhu's. Why? Was it because his birth mother was of lowly birth? Was it because he was the product of Gu Wenhui's drunken stupor? Gu Mingfeng wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and slowly stood up. His gentle face was expressionless, but his entire body was frighteningly cold. When Gu Wenhui saw him like this, he was even angrier. Get lost. You're not part of the Gu family anymore. Gu Mingfeng looked up. Since you're chasing me out, I'll naturally listen to you. From now on, I won't step into the Gu family anymore so that I won't be an eyesore to you. Then he directly turned around and left. Gu Wenhui slapped the table into pieces. When Chuning received the news, he happened to be discussing important matters with Emperor Jiawen in the palace. This matter had too many implications, so Tianlu Academy had sent someone to report it early in the morning. After Chuning heard it, it was as if he was struck by lightning. He couldn't recover his senses for a long time. When Emperor Jiawen saw him like this, he could only sigh deeply and then let him go back to rest for a few days. Chuning didn't know how he walked out of the palace, nor did he know where he had walked to. Everything around him seemed to have faded away, and he was the only one left in the world. He had never felt that his footsteps were so heavy. Every step he took was extremely tiring, and he even felt heart-wrenching pain. However, he didn't dare to stop. He was afraid that once he stopped, the despair and pain would completely drown him. How can you walk like this? On the streets he walked in a daze. Someone hurriedly walked past him and bumped into him. That person said in disgust, but when he saw Chuning's clothes, he immediately realized that he had offended an important person. Thus, he hurriedly shut his mouth and left. When he left, he was still talking to the person beside him. Yeah. Who would have thought that Tianlu Academy would have so many casualties this time? I heard that more than 10 people died. What a pity. They were all rare geniuses. Hey, they said that Chu Luiyue, who just got in a while ago, seemed to have died as well. He's a genius among geniuses. So what? If he dies, he won't have a chance to come back to life. Chuning forced himself to stand up, lowered his head and walked forward. Someone stood in front of him. He looked up slowly and took a while to recognize the person in front of him. Chu Yan. His face was filled with curiosity and pity as he enunciated each word clearly. Big brother, I heard that Chu Luiyue died? Oh, you will be alone in the future. What are you going to do? Love Network has a better reading experience. Chapter 153. When Chu Yin heard the news, he immediately rushed over to look for Chu Ning. As expected, he saw him in a daze. He finally let out the breath that he had been holding in all this time. Although you're no longer part of the Chu family, you're still my big brother. Something happened to Chu Luiyue, and as your younger brother, I'm really worried about you. Big brother, the dead can't come back to life. You have to restrain your grief. Chu Yin put on a sorrowful expression, but the pride and arrogance in his eyes were almost overflowing. Every word was like a knife that ruthlessly stabbed into Chu Ning's heart. It was as if his heart was going to be minced into pieces. Chu Ning used all the strength in her body to stand firm. She glared at him. Are you done? The suppression of a stage 5 warrior was not to be underestimated. Chu Yin subconsciously trembled when he glanced at him, and a sense of fear arose in his heart. However, he was in a good mood now, so he simply ignored it. "Hey big brother, why are you angry? You can't blame me for this. I'm just worried that you'll be too sad, so I'm here to console you. Think about how Chu Luiyue entered Tianlu Academy by passing all 3 assessments. He even booked the entire Phoenix restaurant to celebrate. How lively was that? At that time, who would have thought that things would turn out this way? Don't you think so?" As Chu Yen spoke, he deliberately sighed. "Originally, I thought that our Minmin wasn't outstanding enough and was much worse than Chu Luiyue. However, I didn't expect that this time, it was because she had just recovered that she was extra careful and avoided so many dangers. Big brother, you see, fortune and misfortune come hand in hand. It's really hard to say. Sometimes, some people are unparalleled, but who knows when they'll have to get lost." Chu Ning roared and kicked Chu Yen hard at the same time. Chu Yen was caught off guard and was kicked directly. In addition, his strength couldn't be compared to the current Chu Ning, so Chu Ning's angry kick directly broke his bones. Chu Yen fell to the ground and his face was pale from the pain. Chu Ning's face was terrifyingly gloomy as he quickly walked forward. Chu Yen was struggling to stand up, but before he could, Chu Ning's foot had already mercilessly stepped on his wrist. Crack. The sound of bones breaking was especially crisp. Chu Yen cried out in pain and almost fainted. Chu Ning, on the other hand, grabbed him by the collar and punched him in the face. This person. He didn't want to endure it for even a moment. The people at the side had already recognized the identity of these 2 people. At first, they didn't dare to stop the fight, but in the end, when they saw Chu Ning's eyes were scarlet red and he grabbed the unconscious Chu Yen and wildly beat him up, as if he was determined to beat him to death, some people carefully tried to stop the fight. Under such circumstances, it would be difficult to find any traces of them when they were alive, let alone find Chu Luiyue. Chu Ning looked defeated and was silent for a long time. But in the end he still stubbornly said, "This time I must go. No matter whether he could find her or not, he must go. My Yu-er is most afraid of being alone. I will bring her." He turned around stiffly. After taking a step, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground unconscious. Let's go home. For mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 154. Elder Son got someone to send Chu Ning home and hired someone to take care of him in case anything happened to him. He could understand Chu Ning's feelings, but he did not know what would happen if he went out alone in his current state. How could he not be sad? Back then he thought highly of Chu Luiyue and even wanted to take him in as his disciple. If Uncle Master did not beat him to it, he might really be his master now. Elder Son felt bitter seeing such an outstanding genius fall with his own eyes, but he could not do anything about it. After sending Chu Ning away, Elder Son locked himself in the house and did not come out for a long time. The dying Chu Yen was sent back to the Chu family, but it did not cause much of a stir. Instead, many people laughed at him. Ever since Chu Luiyue came to make a scene and took away a large portion of the Chu family's assets, everyone in the Chu family hated Chu Yen and Lu Yao to the core. Of these 2 people, one used his identity as the 3rd young master to abuse his power, while the other took advantage of the fact that he was in charge of the Chu family's finances and pocketed almost all of the Chu family's assets. If it were not for the fact that the Chu family did not want the 2 of them to fill this hole, the Chu family would not have tolerated them. Besides, Chu Xianmin was just a concubine in Crown Prince Mansion. She could not do anything, so they were even more unscrupulous. Who would still put them in their eyes? The servant reported the news to First Elder, but he only sneered in return. He dug his own grave by provoking Chu Ning. Who can he blame? With Chu Luiyue dead, the Chu family could finally vent their anger. Who would not be secretly happy? However, out of so many people, only the brainless Chu Yen went straight to Chu Ning. No matter what, Chu Ning was already a stage 5 warrior and was not to be trifled with. Only a stupid person would go against Chu Ning directly. First Elder, as the Imperial Guard's commander-in-chief, Chu Ning beat 3rd Master half to death. This is not appropriate. Should we report this to His Majesty? First Elder's mouth twitched. He's stupid, but all of you are stupid as well. Chu Luiyue just died and Chu Ning is devastated. Why would His Majesty pursue this matter at this time? Besides, it was Chu Ning who provoked him first. So many people were present at that time, and they clearly heard his **t. Even if we report this to His Majesty, we will not be in the right. Rather than this, we might as well deal with this matter quietly. First Elder is right. If he could ruthlessly trample on him at this time, that would be called venting his anger. There's no need for us to do anything. Chu Ning won't be able to hold on. Chu. Only Chu Ning is left. Can't he slowly deal with him in the future? Pity. Chu Liwa died so easily outside. She really got off easy. First elder muttered in a low voice. Only by personally dealing with Chu Liwa can the hatred in his heart be quenched. Has there been any news from the Crown Prince? Why is His Majesty so cold to the Crown Prince these days? First elder pondered for a moment and changed the topic. The palace has a tight lockdown on information. We have investigated in private, but we couldn't get any information. However, there is one thing that is a bit strange. The Crown Prince was urgently summoned to the palace on the night of his wedding with the third miss. No one knows what His Majesty said to him, but after he came out, the Crown Prince returned to his residence and never came out. Before that, His Highness Third Prince entered the palace. This matter is related to His Highness Third Prince. Not necessarily. But His Highness Third Prince is currently being held in the capital by His Majesty and has yet to return to the Northwest Army. First Elder's brows wrinkled. A few days ago he personally sent a letter but was rejected. It can be seen that the Crown Prince's situation is worse than expected. Vaguely he felt that the Crown Prince's position is in danger. But they have always been on good terms with the Crown Prince. They are already in the same boat. At this time, it would be wishful thinking to seek refuge with another prince. Therefore, they must find a way to help the Crown Prince out of his current predicament. Mu Hongyu was unconscious for an entire day and night. When she woke up, she sat on the bed in a daze. Her whole body seemed to have been drained of all strength. Her mind seemed to be blank, but everything that happened in Wanling Mountain kept replaying in her mind. All the scenes were clearly replayed over and over again, making her extremely uncomfortable. If they stopped Lu Yu at that time, then everything that happened later wouldn't have happened. They were the ones who thought they were lucky and they were too relaxed. No matter how strong Lu Yu is, she is just a student like them. She even entered the school half a year later than them. How could they let her face a magical beast of the 7th rank alone? That's a very powerful being. Even the elders in the school might not be its match, let alone Lu Yu. Mu Hongyu thought in a daze as tears fell silently. Then she slapped herself harshly. Slap. The crisp sound of the slap was particularly clear in the quiet room. Her face was burning with pain, but it was nothing compared to the self-blame and guilt in her heart. Wu, the golden mane bear cub, felt the heavy sadness from her body and seemed to be infected. It crawled over and hugged her arm as it whimpered softly. Mu Hongyu buried her head in her arms and sobbed silently. At this moment there was a knock on the door. Mu Hongyu hurriedly looked up, wiped the tears on her face, and dragged her tired and painful body to open the door. Who is it? When she saw the face of the person outside the door, Mu Hongyu's face immediately turned cold. She did not say anything and wanted to close the door. Even if the person was wearing a veil and only revealed a pair of eyes, she could immediately recognize that it was Chu Xianmin. Hey, wait. Chu Xianmin held the door with one hand and stopped Mu Hongyu's actions. I heard that you were injured, so I came to visit you out of goodwill. Why are you in such a hurry to close the door? Chu Xianmin said as her eyes quickly swept across Mu Hongyu's face, and the corners of her eyes twitched. Mu Hongyu was enraged by her gaze and her voice was cold. I don't welcome you here. Leave quickly. It won't do you any good to provoke me. Mu Hongyu seemed to smile. You're not my match even when you're at your peak, let alone now that you're injured. This kind of threat is meaningless. What do you want? Mu Hongyu had completely lost her patience. Chu Xianmin suddenly took a step closer. A sinister look flashed across her eyes as she smiled slowly. Chu Luiwa is dead. I heard that you were quite close to her, so I came to visit you. Look at you. She must have died very miserably, right? Chapter 155. Upon hearing this, the anger in Mu Hongyu's heart was completely ignited. She raised her hand and slapped Chu Xianmin's face. Chu Xianmin did not back down. She clamped down on Chu Xianmin's hand and pushed it hard. Mu Hongyu's body fell to the ground uncontrollably. The wounds on her body split open again and blood flowed out, leaving bloodstains on her clothes. She was seriously injured and was at her weakest. She was no match for Chu Xianmin. Chu Xianmin stepped through the door and looked down at her with a mocking gaze. Are you angry? What's there to be angry about? Am I not telling the truth? I heard that Chu Liwa died in the hands of the black flying python. The entire mountain collapsed. I'm sure there's nothing left of her now, right? Mu Hongyu's chest churned as black shadows flashed across her eyes. Get lost. Chu Xianmin chuckled. I came to see you out of goodwill, but you're so against it and even want to chase me away. You really don't know how to appreciate my kindness. However, don't worry. Chu Luiyue harmed me to this extent. I won't let it go so easily. It's a pity that I didn't get to finish her off personally and didn't even see how she died. Since you're so close to her, I'll put this on your head in the future. I'll slowly repay you in the future. As she spoke, she turned around and was about to leave. The golden mane bear cub suddenly chased after her from behind and bit Chu Xianmin's calf harshly. Chu Xianmin cried out in pain and quickly looked down. When she saw that it was the golden mane bear cub, she was shocked and angry. Get lost. The golden mane bear cub was flung away and fell to the ground. Its body shook and it spat out a piece of flesh from its mouth that was full of blood. It had actually bitten off a piece of flesh from Chu Xianmin's calf. Chu Xianmin's face was pale from the pain. Her heart trembled as she looked at the bloody wound on her calf. She had finally recovered from her injury, but she was attacked by this little bastard again. Such a deep wound would definitely leave a scar. You're courting death. She suddenly pulled out the sword at her waist and slashed at the golden mane bear cub. The golden mane bear cub looked up at her, and its fur suddenly stood up. His eyes were filled with hostility. When the long sword landed, it actually charged straight at Chu Xianmin. Chu Xianmin's sword barely grazed the little golden mane bear's back. However, the golden mane bear cub was a natural 4th-grade magical beast. Its physical strength was extremely strong and it dodged quickly. The sword only managed to cut off some of its fur. Not even a single wound was left behind. Bang! The golden mane bear cub slammed its head into Chu Xianmin's stomach, causing her to fall to the ground. The back of Chu Xianmin's head hit the ground hard and her brain buzzed. She was furious. She kicked the golden mane bear cub away and struggled to get up. She raised her sword and stabbed at the bear cub's exposed abdomen. Song song! Mu Hongyu exclaimed and pounced over. The tip of Chu Xianmin's sword had already reached Mu Hongyu's back. Clang! A rock flew from the side and accurately hit the sword, causing Chu Xianmin's sword to deviate. It narrowly grazed Mu Hongyu's side. Chu Xianmin turned around angrily. Who dares? The moment she spoke, she stopped as if someone was strangling her. The person who came was Mr. Wen Yan. He quickly went forward and helped Mu Hongyu up. After making sure that she was fine, he looked at Chu Xianmin again with an ugly expression. Chu Xianmin, what are you doing? He originally wanted to see how Mu Hongyu was recovering, but he did not expect to see Chu Xianmin standing at the door from afar with a sword in her hand. When he got closer, he clearly saw Chu Xianmin attacking Mu Hongyu. This is the academy? Are you crazy? How dare you attack your own classmate? Chu Xianmin knew that something was wrong. The door was not closed and Mr. Wen Yan must have seen it clearly. She hurriedly tried to defend herself. Mr. Wen Yan, listen to me. It's not what you think. I just wanted to visit Mu Hongyu. Her fiend attacked me first and I fought back to protect myself. Wen Yan did not believe a single word of this explanation. Cut the crap. When did your relationship with Mu Hongyu become so good? Chu Xianmin secretly bit her lip. Mr. Wen Yan, I'm telling the truth. Look if you don't believe me. This is the wound it left on me. Chu Xianmin pointed at her calf as she spoke. Wen Yan frowned and looked over. Indeed, a piece of flesh had been forcefully torn off. He turned around and glanced at Mu Hongyu and the golden mane bear cub. The golden mane bear cub was still vigilant as it stared at Chu Xianmin. Wen Yan shook his head and said with disappointment, Fiends are very sensitive. Magical beasts are the most sensitive, especially young ones. The reason why it's so wary of you is obviously because it has sensed your hostility. Mu Hongyu is its master. Do you want me to continue asking why it's treating you like this? Chu Xianmin was a little flustered. Mr. Wen Yan? All right. You're also injured now, so we're barely even. I won't pursue this any further. Quickly go back and recuperate. Don't let this happen again in the future. Wen Yan interrupted her and looked a little impatient. Yes. Chu Xianmin knew that there was no point in continuing to argue. She could only clench her teeth and swallow her anger as she turned around and limped away. Wen Yan looked at her back view for a long time and sighed. Chu Xianmin used to be smart and hardworking. How did she become like this? Mu Hongyu hugged the golden mane bear cub and patted it for a while. It finally recovered from its previous state and lay in Mu Hongyu's arms softly. Wen Yan turned around and saw that she was in a daze with red eyes. He did not know how to comfort her. He took out a letter from his sleeve. Hongyu, your father, Prince Pingjiang, wrote a letter. Chu Xianmin returned to her residence and treated her wound. However, the more she thought about it, the angrier she became. When Chu Luiyue was still alive, he caused her to suffer a crushing defeat. Not only did he disfigure her, but he also forced her to marry into the crown prince mansion as a concubine. She could not lift her head up until now. Now that she was dead, he was still haunting her. She could not take this lying down. After thinking for a while, she suddenly stood up and walked toward Peach Garden. In Peach Garden, Ling Zhu was dealing with the compensation for the injured students when he heard the news of Chu Xianmin's arrival. He put down the things in his hands and walked to the courtyard. He immediately saw Chu Xianmin, who was waiting there. "Xianmin, why are you here?" Ling Zhu used to admire Chu Xianmin a lot. Even though he vaguely felt that she had changed after she returned, he did not pay much attention to it. It was normal for her to change after what happened previously. Chu Xianmin glanced inside without batting an eyelid. "Mr. Ling Zhu, is Elder Son here? There's something I want to report." Ling Zhu shook his head. "Elder Son is busy right now. I'm afraid he doesn't have time to see you. You can tell me anything. I'll pass it on to Elder Son later." Chu Xianmin hesitated for a while but still spoke. "Mr. Ling Zhu, the Tianling dynasty's envoy seems to be coming soon." Ling Zhu was stunned, and his expression became much more serious. "Yes, why are you suddenly asking about this?" Chu Xianmin paused and seemed to hesitate. "Sister's accident was too sudden. However, since the matter has been decided, it's not appropriate to go back on it at the last minute. I wonder if old son plans to send someone else up? Love Network has a better reading experience than this." Chapter 156. Ling Zhu never expected that Chu Xianmin would come here immediately to talk about this matter before Chu Liyue's body had even turned cold. Even if Chu Liyue had severed ties with the Chu family, they still had the same blood flowing in their veins. How could Chu Xianmin say all this without changing her expression? Wasn't she stepping on Chu Liyue's dead body? Ling Zhu's expression was a little stiff. "Xianmin, did you look for Elder Son just to talk about this?" Chu Xianmin also noticed that his expression was a little off. She lowered her eyes and made a sorrowful expression. "Teacher Ling Zhu, I know it's not appropriate to say this now, but the dead can't be brought back to life. As the living, we should do what we should do. The Tianling dynasty is such a powerful existence. If we don't deal with this properly, this is not something you should worry about. You should go back and rest first." Ling Zhu looked at Chu Xianmin's sorrowful expression and felt nauseous. If Chu Xianmin cared about Chu Liyue even a little, she would never do such a thing. Since she could say it, why did she have to be so pretentious? Chu Xianmin did not notice Ling Zhu's gaze and asked hesitantly, "Then this matter? I'll discuss it with Elder Son when he's free." Ling Zhu averted his gaze. Chu Xianmin was then relieved. "Okay, I'll go back first. Please continue with your work." She then turned around and left. Walking out of Peach Garden, Chu Xianmin's lips curled up under her veil. Chu Liyue was already dead, and the academy would definitely find someone to replace him. Naturally, she was the most suitable person as the second in rank. The Tianling dynasty was a powerful existence that only existed in legends. If she could use this opportunity to build a relationship with them, she would not have to worry about not being able to achieve great things in the future. Now, everyone said that she was down and out and no longer had her former glory. Even the servants in Crown Prince Mansion dared to treat her badly. When she made a comeback, she would see how those people would continue to mock her. Ling Zhu watched Chu Xianmin leave. When her figure completely disappeared, he finally let out a long sigh and rubbed between his brows. Other than anger, there was also confusion in his heart. When did Chu Xianmin become like this? Or had he misjudged her from the very beginning? After settling this matter, Chu Xianmin wanted to go back and have a good rest. However, before she could reach her residence, the Chu family sent someone to inform her that Chu Yan had been beaten half to death by Chu Ning. Lu Yao wanted her to go back quickly. Chu Xianmin was shocked, but she did not care about her injury. She applied for leave from the teacher and returned to the Chu family. Chu Xianmin had mixed feelings when she walked to the Chu family's door again. She did not want to go in for a moment. "Then what should we do? Are we just going to watch your father suffer like this?" Chu Xianmin was silent for a while before she finally said, "Forget it. Don't be anxious now. I'll think of a way to raise some money for you to hire a better doctor for my father first. I'll think of a way to deal with the crown prince. After this period of time, the Tianling dynasty's people will come, and it will be our day to shine." Lu Yao was confused. "What? Where did this come from?" Chu Xianmin touched the veil on her face. "Chu Liyue is dead. I'll take her place and meet the Tianling dynasty's envoy. As long as I meet him, I'll have a chance to make a comeback." Lu Yao's eyes lit up. Why didn't she think of that? When Chu Xianmin returned to Crown Prince Mansion, it was already night time. She went straight to the study and wanted to see the Crown Prince. As expected, she was rejected again. However, she did not go back directly this time. Instead, she was very persistent. Your Highness, I know that you've been troubled recently, so I'm here to help you. Please meet me. If you don't think it's possible, I won't disturb you again in the future. After saying that, she waited quietly. After some time, Rong Jin's voice was finally heard. Let her in. Let her in. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 157. Chu Residence. Chu Ning was unconscious for a day. He only woke up the next morning. He opened his eyes and took a while to recognize that he was in his own house. No, wasn't he at Tianlu Academy discussing with Elder Sun about going to Wanling Mountain to find you, or? Why was he back home in the blink of an eye? He struggled to get up but knocked over the teacup beside the bed. Hearing the commotion, the person waiting outside hurriedly came in. Lord Chu Ning, you're awake? Chu Ning looked blankly at the man who came in. You are? I'm a teacher at Tianlu Academy, Ensure. Elder Sun asked me to send you back. Now that you're awake, I can go back without worry. After guarding outside for a night, Ensure looked a little haggard, but his eyes were full of sincerity. You were too anxious, so you suddenly fainted yesterday. It's not a big deal. You just need to rest for 2 days and you'll recover. Chu Ning finally reacted. Thank you. Ensure hurriedly shook his head. You're welcome. We're all worried about your health. Please take care. Since you're fine now, I'll take my leave first. Chu Ning nodded. Ensure saw that he seemed to have calmed down and he felt relieved. He reminded him a few more times before turning to leave. Chu Ning, who was sitting in the room, heard the sound of the door opening and closing clearly. His eyes were empty like a bottomless abyss. After a while he finally got up and walked out with stiff and heavy steps. Not long after Ensure walked out, he heard footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw Chu Ning walking out as well. He was expressionless and his whole body emitted a cold aura. Ensure walked back quickly. Lord Chu Ning, why are you out so soon? You need to have a good rest. Chu Ning pushed away his hand that was about to support him and said word by word, I'm going to find you, I've already been delayed for an entire night yesterday. I can't be late again today. I have to go quickly. Ensure was helpless. Given Chu Ning's current state, people might even believe that he had gone mad. How could he let him go to Wanling Mountain alone? He tried to pull him back but failed. He could only run in front of Chu Ning and block his way. Please listen to my advice. Lord Chu Ning, no matter what you want to do, you should first take care of your body, right? Now that you're like this, what if something happens? Chu Ning walked around him and stubbornly walked forward. I must go, I must go. At this moment, a young girl's clear voice suddenly came from behind. Father, where are you going? Chu Ning's body trembled. He couldn't be more familiar with this voice. But, could it be that he missed you, too much that he was hearing things? Father? The voice was right behind him. Chu Ning wanted to turn around immediately, but his body was extremely stiff and he couldn't move at all. Ensure raised his head and saw a young girl coming from the corner of the Bluestone Road. She was slender and graceful, and her appearance was clear and beautiful. The corners of her mouth held a smile, and her pair of limpid autumn water eyes shimmered with light, and it actually caused everything in the surroundings to lose color in an instant. Who else could it be but the dead Chu Luiyue? Ensure's heart trembled. He opened his mouth and couldn't help but point a finger at her. You're Chu Luiyue? Chu Luiyue looked at him in confusion. Teacher Ensure, don't you recognize me? Although she didn't have much contact with this teacher, it seemed that she should recognize him. Ensure fiercely pinched himself. It was excruciatingly painful. But he immediately rejoiced in his heart. It's really you. It's really you. He excitedly patted Chu Ning's arm. Lord Chu Ning, quickly look. Luiyue is really back. Quickly look. Chu Ning's ears were buzzing. Chu Luiyue finally sensed that something was wrong. She quickly walked forward. Father, what's wrong? Ensure hurriedly explained. You don't know. Everyone thought that you had. Lord Chu Ning said that he wanted to go to Wanling Mountain to find you. I didn't expect that you would come back like this. That's great. Chu Luiyue suddenly understood. That's right. In that situation, no one would think that she could come back alive. It turned out that the place that father insisted on going to was Wanling Mountain. When everyone thought that she was dead, her father still wanted to look for her. Chu Luiyue's nose twitched. Her heart was filled with guilt. She reached out and hugged Chu Ning's arm. Father, is back. His arm, which was touched by her, instantly melted like the spring water. The stiff and cold feeling instantly dissipated. It became warm and soft and then quickly spread. Chu Ning's body could finally move. He slowly turned his head and finally saw the face that he thought he would never see again. Chu Liyue was shocked when she saw his appearance. In just a few days, the originally clean and handsome Chu Ning seemed to have changed into another person. His face was unshaven, his eyes were dark green and his eyes were bloodshot. Especially between his brows, there was a trace of gray and dispirited aura that was faintly discernible. His entire person was like a walking corpse that had lost its soul. Her eyes instantly turned red. "Father, I'm sorry. You came back late." Chu Ning looked at her without blinking. He held her hand tightly as if he was afraid that she would disappear again. You are. My his voice almost broke Chu Liyue's heart. She held back her tears. "Father, let's go home first." Yes. Let's go home." Chu Ning finally came back to life. "Let's go home." Exanshur was also very happy at the side. "Lord Chu Ning, Liu, you two go home first. I'll go back to the academy and tell elder son and the rest that you're back. They've been worried sick these few days." After that he turned around and left quickly. Exanshur actually admired Chu Liyue very much. Now that he saw that she had returned safely, he was also very happy. He couldn't hide the smile on his face. When they reached the academy, many people were curious when they saw his energetic and smiling face. Not long after, they bumped into Bai Chen. Bai Chen asked curiously, "Exanshur, didn't elder son send you to take care of Lord Chu Ning? Now that you're back, is Lord Chu Ning better?" Exanshur chuckled. "Of course. Not only is he better, but he's completely recovered. Where's elder son? I have something important to tell him immediately." Bai Chen looked at him and found it very strange. "Are you serious? Lord Chu Ning was heartbroken yesterday. Why is he completely recovered now? Elder son is still busy. What's so important that you have to tell him so urgently?" Exanshur patted his chest. "I won't hide it from you. Anyway, the whole imperial city will know about this very soon. Chu Liyue. She's back alive." Chu Xianmin, who had just walked in, suddenly stopped in her tracks as if she was struck by lightning. She looked up in disbelief. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Writing a letter to Madame Gu. "What time is it now? You still have the mood to do this kind of thing?" Chu Yan was fuming with anger. However, Lu Yao smiled. "It's better to do this now. Rumor has it that Chu Liyue and Gu Mingzhu died together. But now that Chu Liyue is back, there is no news of Gu Mingzhu. Obviously she is really dead. Is there nothing wrong with this?" Chu Yan was stunned for a moment before he quickly understood. "You mean?" Lu Yao's lips curled into a sinister smile. "So what if she came back alive? There are many people in the imperial city who want her life." That night, the letter was sent to the Gu family. The next day, Chu Liyue saw that Chu Ning had recovered a lot. She was relieved and went to the academy. But just as she reached the entrance of the academy, she was stopped. "Chu Liyue, stop right there." She looked back and saw a woman in her 30s walking over quickly with a group of people. She was dressed in white and her eyes were red. She looked sad and angry. Seeing Chu Liyue's face, she immediately became agitated and wailed. "Give me back my daughter's life." Digression: I couldn't sleep yesterday. Sob, 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 sob. A better reading experience comes from Love. Chapter 159. Her voice was sharp and piercing, causing Chu Liyue to frown. "Who are you?" When the woman heard this, she seemed to be even more agitated. She immediately rushed forward and slapped Chu Liyue. "You still have the cheek to ask who I am? I'll kill you." Chu Liyue sidestepped and dodged her attack. The woman lost her balance and almost fell to the ground. Fortunately, the people behind her quickly caught her. "Madam, you have to be careful." The woman was even angrier. She pointed at Chu Liyue and said sternly, "Go. Capture her." Yes. When the people heard this order, they immediately went forward and surrounded Chu Liyue, intending to take action. Chu Liyue's expression did not change, but his voice was much colder. He sounded imposing without being angry. "This is Tianlu Academy. Let's see who has the guts to cause trouble here." This sentence successfully made the people stop in their tracks and feel uneasy. That's right. No matter what, this was Tianlu Academy's entrance. If they really did something overboard here, Tianlu Academy would not let them off. However, the woman did not seem to hear Chu Liyue's words at all. Her voice rose an octave. "Why are you still standing there? Take her down right now. If the Gu family wants to capture someone, who dares to stop us?" The Gu family? Chu Liyue's mind raced. He finally remembered this woman's identity. She was the wife of the head of the Gu family, Gu Yunfei. She was the mistress of the Gu family, Yu Jinling. The original owner of the body had only seen this woman once, and it had been a few years ago. When Chu Luiyue saw her, he only felt that she looked familiar. However, he did not remember anything. However, since she was so arrogant and kept saying, "My Gu family," it was not difficult for people to guess who she was. Chu Luiyue finally understood what she meant when she said those words at the beginning. This was because Yu Jinling was Gu Mingzhu's biological mother. "Oh, it's Madame Gu. I don't seem to have any dealings with your Gu family, and I haven't done anything wrong to you, have I? I wonder why you've mustered such a large force to capture me?" Yu Jinling was so angry that she laughed. She looked at Chu Luiyue with resentment in her eyes. "You still have the nerve to say that? You know best what you've done." Chu Luiyue's expression did not change. "I really don't know. Why don't you explain it to me first?" Yu Jinling was so angry that her whole body trembled. "What's going on? Why are you making so much noise so early in the morning?" Just as the two sides were in a deadlock, someone walked out from the academy's gate. Chu Luiyue turned around to take a look. Teacher Bai Qin. When Bai Qin saw Chu Luiyue, her heart skipped a beat. Even though he had already heard the news yesterday, seeing it with his own eyes still made him excited. "Little Luyu. It's really you?" He quickly walked up to Chu Luiyue and looked at her carefully. Yu Jinling rebuked coldly. "Isn't that enough? Otherwise, why don't you ask her to personally explain how she managed to escape alone under that kind of situation?" If Chu Luiyue was also dead, she would have nothing to say. She could only admit that she was unlucky. But now, Chu Luiyue was standing here, safe and sound, while her daughter's corpse was nowhere to be found. How could she not hate her? Bai Qin was speechless. "Do you have any evidence for what you said? If you don't have evidence, it's slander." Yu Jinling was stunned. For a moment, she didn't know how to respond and seemed a little guilty. Chu Luiyue gently rubbed between her eyebrows and said calmly, "There's no evidence or evidence. Just based on your own imagination, you're sure that I'm guilty and even want to take me away? Madame Gu, aren't you being too unreasonable?" Yu Jinling was rendered speechless by the two of them. Her face, which was originally red from crying, quickly turned pale. But she had seen much of the world and the Jiao quickly defended herself. She quickly said, "Then explain yourself clearly. What exactly happened at that time? Why are you the only one who came back safely? If you already had the means to escape, why didn't you help Mingzhu?" Chapter 160. Why didn't she help? Chu Luiyue sneered in her heart. Instead, she wanted to ask herself why she should help. She and Gu Mingzhu were not related at all. Moreover, Gu Mingzhu had betrayed her to the black flying python in order to save her own life. She had yet to settle this score. How could the Gu family have the nerve to ask her to pay for Gu Mingzhu's life? Chu Luiyue said indifferently, "The situation was critical at that time. It was already extremely difficult for me to survive. How could I care about other things? Madame Gu, don't forget that it was a black flying python. Do you think I'm its match?" Yu Jinling was speechless. Then how did you escape? Who knows if you used my daughter's life in exchange for a way out? Yes, that must be it. Yu Jinling suddenly raised her voice, as if she was certain that Chu Luiyue must have used despicable means to survive. Chu Luiyue was so angry that she laughed. As the saying went, like father, like son. Yu Jinling and Gu Mingzhu, this pair of mother and daughter, indeed had the same brain circuit. If the person present at that time was Yu Jinling, she would probably make the same choice as Gu Mingzhu and use someone else's life in exchange for her own. "Madame Gu, I've already said it very clearly. I was lucky to be able to come back alive. But if you don't want to believe me, then what else can I say? You only believe in your own imagination. Since that's the case, you can think whatever you want. But today, if you can't produce evidence, I won't go with you. I still have something to do, so I'll leave first." With that, Chu Luiyue turned to leave. "You can't leave." Yu Jinling took a few steps forward and was about to grab Chu Luiyue's sleeve, but she gently swayed and dodged. Chu Luiyue's patience was completely exhausted. "Madame Gu, I don't have that much patience." Her tone was very calm, but a cold light seemed to flash in her obsidian-like eyes. For some reason, Madame Gu suddenly felt a little timid and did not dare to reach out to grab Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue turned around and walked towards the academy. Bai Qin walked in front of Yu Jinling and sighed, persuading her, "Madame Gu, I know that Mingzhu's incident is a huge blow to you. As teachers, we are also very sad. But even so, they couldn't just randomly accuse others, right? Moreover, we all know Lu Yu's character. She would never do something like that. So I think you should go back and have a good rest today." Yu Jinling refused. Teacher Bai Qin, you're determined to protect Chu Luiyue today, aren't you? What kind of soup did she feed you to make you trust her so much? Think about it, in that kind of situation, if she didn't use some kind of method, how could she have escaped? Bai Chen's expression also turned cold. Madam Gu, are you saying that all the teachers and elders of Tianlu Academy are covering for Chu Luiyue? Yu Jinling thought that this might not be impossible, but she didn't dare to say it out loud. She glared viciously at Chu Luiyue. Her eyes were filled with hatred. Lu Yao was right. Chu Luiyue was really a vicious and venomous snake. I don't know what kind of person Chu Luiyue is. I only know that she could betray the Chu family that gave birth to her. She kicked them away and even wanted to peel off a layer of their skin after she left. She stirred up chaos in the Chu family, let alone other people. Chu Luiyue, if you don't give me a satisfactory explanation today, I won't leave. After she finished speaking, her legs turned to jelly, and she collapsed on the ground, crying out loud. Mingzhu, my poor daughter. You died so tragically. Someone else caused your death, but I couldn't do anything about it. Mother is useless. Mother is useless. When the few followers beside her saw this, they immediately knelt down and cried in unison. Second Missy. You've been harmed by that evil person. The corners of Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. Was she planning to cry at Tianlu Academy's entrance? She frowned and looked back. She only felt that it was ridiculous. No matter what, Yu Jinling was the matriarch of the Gu family. She had a noble status. How could she do such a thing? No matter how sorrowful and angry she was, her actions were equivalent to throwing the Gu family's face. Why didn't she consider it at all? When Yu Jinling saw Chu Luiyue's reaction, she thought that she was afraid and cried even harder. Her shrill and mournful voice could be heard from afar. Very quickly, many people gathered outside the entrance to watch the commotion. Some people started pointing at Chu Luiyue as if they were gossiping. Bai Qin had never seen such a scene before. He was momentarily stunned. After regaining his senses, he was furious. If they cried like this, where would Chu Luiyue and Tianlu Academy be? He frowned and said, Madame Gu, it's not appropriate for you to make such a scene, right? Yu Jinling pretended not to hear anything. She only cared about crying. Bai Qin had a bad temper. He immediately panicked. Chu Luiyue hurriedly pulled him back. Teacher Bai Qin, don't do anything. With so many people watching, whoever made the first move would be in the wrong. Bai Qin was extremely frustrated. Are we just going to let them make a scene here? What about your reputation? The surrounding people had already heard the gist of the situation. They started discussing in low voices. I was wondering why this person's identity was so special. So she's the Gu family's matriarch. No wonder she dared to go against Tianlu Academy. That's not right. Tianlu Academy is not that easy to provoke. You don't know this, right? Gu Mingzhu was her only daughter. She relied on Gu Mingzhu to stabilize her position in the Gu family. Now that Gu Mingzhu is dead, there are many people coveting her position. She's in danger now. How can she not hate her? She can't be blamed for making such a scene without caring about anything else. I see. Based on what she said, it was Chu Luiyue who killed Gu Mingzhu? I find it strange too. Think about it. It was such a dangerous situation, but why did Chu Luiyue survive? Gu Mingzhu was the Gu family's most favored second young mistress. She must have some trump cards. Even she is dead, but Chu Luiyue? Actually, I wanted to say this a long time ago. This Chu Luiyue is really strange. Back then, the Chu family didn't treat her well. After she cut ties with them, the Chu family's days became difficult. I heard that Gu Mingzhu didn't have a good relationship with her. She died after being trapped with her. This is really hard to say. Bai Qin was furious when he heard the discussions around him. However, when he saw Chu Luiyue's expression, not only was he not angry, but he even smiled. Little Luyu, how can you still smile now? If you let these people continue, you will really be the sinner who killed Gu Mingzhu. Do you know that 3 people make a tiger? Chu Luiyue crossed his arms and smiled faintly. Teacher Bai Qin, they specially arranged so many people to put on a show. Wouldn't it be a waste if we don't enjoy it? Bai Qin was stunned. You mean these people? It's hard for Madame Gu to do such a despicable thing with her status. Chu Luiyue said softly and walked in front of Yu Jinling. Madame Gu, tell me who taught you these things. Yu Jinling's crying stopped abruptly. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chu Luiyue looked at the person in surprise. Elder son? Why are you here? Elder son looked at her and tried his best to maintain a calm expression. However, he couldn't help but look happy. I heard that you were back, so I wanted to come and take a look. I didn't expect to hear cries from afar. So, someone is making things difficult for you. Chu Luiyue coughed in embarrassment. Sorry to disturb you. It's not really a disturbance. Even if it is, it's someone else. It's not your fault. As Elder Sun spoke, he looked at Yu Jinling and saw her sitting on the ground without a care for her image. His face darkened. Madame Gu, what are you doing? Yu Jinling was shocked. She didn't expect Elder Sun to appear. Although she was furious, she knew that Elder Sun was one of the top people in Tianlu Academy. She didn't dare to be impudent in front of him. Thus, she hurriedly stood up and said, Elder Sun, you came at the right time. Mingzhu is also a student of the academy, but she died tragically outside. Even her corpse. As she spoke, tears flowed down her face again. All of this is Chu Luiyue's fault. She caused Mingzhu's death. Such a vicious person doesn't have the right to stay in Tianlu Academy. Elder Sun's frown deepened. Luyu caused Mingzhu's death? Where did you hear this from? Why don't I know about it? Elder Sun. Do you know that the two of them were trapped on a mountain? Mingzhu is dead, but Chu Luiyue is still alive. Don't you think it's strange? You, Elder Sun looked at her with a heavy gaze and interrupted her mercilessly. Of course, I know about this because I was at the foot of the mountain. I saw it clearly. Yu Jinling was stunned and immediately rejoiced. That's great. So, you saw everything that happened at that time? Chu Luiyue caused Mingzhu's death, right? Chu Luiyue, don't you want evidence? Elder Sun is here. His words are the evidence. As one of the great elders of Tianlu Academy, Sun Zhongyan's status was extraordinary. Normally he would not side with anyone. No one would doubt the truth of what he said. Chu Luiyue was also surprised. Elder Sun, you were there at the time? Elder Sun nodded. Only the two of you were trapped, so I let the others leave first. I went alone to save the two of you. However, when I reached the foot of the mountain, I realized that it was occupied by countless fiend beasts. There was no way to enter, let alone anything else. Chu Luiyue understood, and her heart warmed. I see. She did not expect this to happen. Elder Sun could be considered to have done everything he could for them. You don't have to blame yourself. The situation was critical. If you had barged in, you would have been in trouble. Elder Sun sighed. I saw the two of you being swallowed by the black whirlpool with my own eyes. That's why I thought you were. I didn't expect you to return safely. He was actually very curious. He did not know how Chu Luiyue had escaped, but now was not the time to ask. He stepped forward and looked at Yu Jinling. Madame Gu, you should apologize to Luyu. Yu Jinling was stunned. What? Elder Sun said word by word. That's because the person who betrayed her fellow disciples in exchange for a chance to live was not Chu Luiyue, but Gu Mingzhu. Digression. The remaining two photos were slightly later, around noon. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience came from Love Network. Chapter 162. Elder Sun's words were full of energy. It was like a sudden clap of thunder. Not only Yu Jinling but everyone else was also dumbfounded. This meant, Elder Sun? What are you talking about? Yu Jinling subconsciously retorted, the one who is alive now is Chu Luiyue. The one who is dead is my Mingzhu. How could it be? At that time, Chu Luiyue and Gu Mingzhu were trapped on the mountain. The black flying python led many magical beasts and surrounded the mountain. Actually, from the beginning, the black flying python wanted to kill Luyu. But at that time, the black flying python was trapped for some reason. Luyu wanted to take the opportunity to escape. But just as she was about to escape, Gu Mingzhu stopped her. Not only did she attack Luyu, she also hugged her leg and didn't let her leave. Although I was some distance away, I saw that she was holding Luyu back while talking to the black flying python. But the black flying python didn't care and directly swallowed her into the black vortex. Luyu was dragged down by her and couldn't hold on for long. She was also sucked into the vortex. With every word Elder Sun said, Yu Jinling's face turned paler. In the end, she was as pale as a ghost. Her strength seemed to have been sucked away in an instant. She was on the verge of collapsing. The people beside her quickly went forward to support her. Impossible. This is impossible. Mingzhu isn't that kind of person. She wouldn't do such a thing. She appeared fierce on the outside but was weak on the inside. Although she appeared to be strong on the surface, she actually felt a little guilty. Gu Mingzhu was her daughter, so she knew her best. When Gu Mingzhu returned home, she had repeatedly expressed her dissatisfaction with Chu Luiyue. Later, she made a bet with Chu Luiyue and lost 2 level 5 Shen formation diagrams. Gu Mingzhu hated her even more. The two of them were trapped. She might really, Elder Sun said coldly, Madame Gu, are you saying that I'm lying? Yu Jinling couldn't speak. Her forehead was already covered in cold sweat. How could she dare to say that elder son was lying? Moreover, even if she didn't believe it, elder son was a person of virtue and prestige. Others would definitely think that what he said was true. Yesterday when she received Lu Yao's letter, she was blinded by anger. All she wanted was to take Chu Liyue's life. But now even elder son stood up for Chu Liyue. The situation had already been decided. Even if she continued to cause trouble, it would be useless. Seeing Yu Jinling like this, everyone came back to their senses. Yu Jinling originally wanted to cause trouble for Chu Liyue, but now that elder son had spoken, she could no longer pester endlessly. Seeing that the situation was not right, a few people in the crowd quietly turned around and left. Chu Liyue glanced at him but did not stop him. In any case, she had already guessed who was behind this, so she didn't need to waste her energy on these small fries. Just as Yu Jinling didn't know what to do, the sound of hurried footsteps came from afar. The crowd quickly opened up a path. A middle-aged man rushed over with his entourage, looking anxious. When he saw Yu Jinling, his expression became even more unsightly. What are you doing here? Hearing this angry shout, Yu Jinling's body trembled and she turned around. Patriarch? The person who came over was burly and had a square face. He looked dignified without being angry. It was the patriarch of the Gu family, Gu Yunfei. He glared fiercely at Yu Jinling. What did I tell you yesterday? Have you forgotten? Yu Jinling shivered and lowered her head, not daring to look at him. I was just thinking about Mingzhu. Gu Yunfei was about to explode in anger. Everything was fine yesterday, but Yu Jinling suddenly ran to him and said that Chu Liyue must have done something to Mingzhu to be able to come back alive. She said that he must capture Chu Liyue and interrogate her properly. Gu Yunfei was skeptical. He had always doted on Gu Mingzhu. He felt terrible about her death, but he did not lose his rationality. On one hand, this was only their speculation. They did not have any evidence, so they could not accuse Chu Liyue. On the other hand, Chu Liyue's status was different from before. She was highly regarded in Tianlu Academy. How could it be so easy to touch her? He told Yu Jinling not to act rashly and to wait until they had enough evidence. Yu Jinling agreed at that time, but he did not expect her to do it. She even dared to bring people to Tianlu Academy to cause trouble. Looking at Yu Jinling's pathetic state, the Gu family's face and Gu Yunfei's face were all lost. Shut up. Yu Jinling was shocked. She knew that she was in the wrong, so she did not dare to say another word. Gu Yunfei took a deep breath and walked quickly to Old Sun with an apologetic expression. Old Sun, I'm really sorry. I didn't discipline her well, which caused her to cause such a huge commotion. You have always been magnanimous. Please, on account of the fact that we have just lost our daughter, can you let this matter pass? Old Sun waved his hand. You don't have to say that. You don't have to apologize to me. This matter has damaged Lu Yu's reputation. You should ask her. Gu Yunfei was stunned and a little surprised. Old Sun seemed to take special care of Chu Liyue. At the end of the day, Chu Liyue was just a student of the academy. Tianlu Academy's reputation had been tarnished by the commotion today. However, elder Sun's first consideration was Chu Liyue. He suppressed the shock in his heart and said to Yu Jinling angrily, Did you hear what Old Sun said? Why aren't you apologizing to Lu Yu? Yu Jinling widened her eyes. Family head, you want me to apologize to her? She was the matriarch of the Gu family. Who was Chu Liyue? Gu Yunfei said coldly, Do you want me to apologize on your behalf? Yu Jinling was shocked, and her aura immediately weakened. Without Mingzhu, her position in the Gu family was very dangerous. If she offended the family head now, then, she gritted her teeth and her legs felt like they were filled with lead. She walked step by step to Chu Liyue, and her voice seemed to be squeezed out from her throat with difficulty. I'm sorry. Chu Liyue blinked. Madame Gu, what did you say? I didn't hear you clearly. Yu Jinling was so angry that her whole body trembled. How could she not have heard clearly? She was deliberately making things difficult for her. Gu Yunfei looked at her warningly. Yu Jinling had no choice but to close her eyes in resentment. I'm sorry. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 163. Chu Liyue looked at her sympathetically. I wouldn't dare. Madame Gu is of noble status. I can't accept your apology. However, Madame Gu, you seem to be crying too hard just now. Listen, your voice is hoarse now. Yu Jinling was so angry that she almost couldn't breathe. Wasn't she mocking her on purpose? You, that's enough. Gu Yunfei shouted angrily and looked at his subordinates behind him. Hurry up and send Madame Gu back. Take care of her. Yes. They hurried forward and half supported and half forced Yu Jinling away. With Gu Yunfei here, Yu Jinling didn't dare to make a fuss no matter how angry she was. She could only leave with them. Gu Yunfei finally heaved a sigh of relief when they were completely out of sight. Elder son Lu Yu, this, Master Gu, elder son already said it very clearly. Gu Mingzhu failed to harm me and lost her life in the end. In fact, it wasn't just this time. It was the same before. She wanted to steal the cub of the golden mane bear but failed and was hunted down instead. Later, she purposely dragged our team down with her, causing us to be threatened by the golden mane bear. If it weren't for our good luck, even Mu Hongyu and the rest wouldn't have been able to escape death, much less me. Chu Liyue's expression was calm, but what she said shocked everyone once again. I'm of ordinary status. It doesn't matter if I die or get hurt. However, Mu Hongyu is Princess Yongping. If something happens to her because of this, Master Gu, I'm afraid you'll be in trouble. Gu Yunfei's remaining words were stuck in his throat. He didn't know if Chu Liyue was telling the truth, but Elder Sun was on her side. Even if it was fake, it was true. I originally thought that since Gu Mingzhu is no longer here, we don't need to pursue this matter. After all, the dead are more important. However, I didn't expect that after I gave in again and again, all I got in return was groundless accusations and slander. Master Gu, although I'm not a great person, I won't admit to things I haven't done. If others want to slander me, I definitely won't sit back and do nothing. Fortunately, Elder Sun was here today. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to clear my name even if I jumped into the Yellow River. What do you think? Gu Yunfei felt a chill run down his back. Then what do you want? Chu Liyue paused and smiled. Mrs. Gu has already apologized to me in front of everyone. Of course, I won't hold it against her. Let's just forget about this matter. The stone in Gu Yunfei's heart was finally lifted. That's good, that's good. However, Chu Liyue took a step forward, lowered his voice and laughed. Gu family head, Madame Gue has lost her beloved daughter. Now that she's grieving, it's easy for her to be incited by others. Perhaps someone might take advantage of her. You'd better pay more attention. Gu Yunfei's heart thumped. The farce finally came to an end. Chu Liyue returned to the academy and briefly told Elder Sun and Bai Chen what had happened over the past 2 days. However, she didn't mention how she had escaped from the Black Vortex. She only said that she had fainted and found herself lying in the forest when she woke up. She didn't know what had happened. Elder Sun didn't believe it, but seeing that Chu Liyue didn't seem to want to talk about it, he didn't pursue the matter. He told her to rest well and let her go. Before Chu Liyue returned to her residence, she bumped into Mu Hongyu and Xin Hu, who were looking for her. When the two saw Chu Liyue standing in front of them, they were overjoyed. Liu, it's really you? It's really you? Mu Hongyu hugged her, crying and laughing at the same time. Xin Hu scratched his head and laughed so hard that the corners of his mouth almost reached the back of his head. Ah! I told you that Liu wouldn't go back on her words. We agreed to meet outside the mountains. Isn't it true now? Chu Liyue saw that the two of them looked haggard and knew that they had been suffering for the past few days. Her heart ached as she patted Mu Hongyu's shoulder. I've always been a man of my words. On the other hand, the two of you look so sickly. Mu Hongyu wiped her tears. Of course not. As she spoke, she couldn't help but burst into laughter. I heard that the matriarch of the Gu family came to find trouble with you? How could they have the cheek to do that? Chu Liyue shook her head. It's already been resolved. Madame Gu probably won't have an easy time in the future. Xin Hu asked doubtfully. How do you know? After all, she's the matriarch of the Gu family. Chu Liyue's lips curved up. It's precisely because she's the matriarch that this matter is so serious. The Chu residence. After hearing the news from the servants, Lu Yao was in a daze for a long time. She sat in her chair in a daze and muttered in disbelief. How could this be? Could it be that this still couldn't bring her down? Not only did it not bring her down, but it even cleared Chu Liyue's name. With Elder Sun's words, there would no longer be such a rumor in the entire imperial city. Chu Liyue had cleared her name without any effort. What exactly did she rely on to avoid danger time and time again? It's all because of you. Now, everyone knows that Elder Sun is also Chu Liyue's backer. Chu Yin was seriously injured and couldn't get out of bed. Her temper had become even more irritable, and she would scold her frequently. Lu Yao was vexed. I didn't know that things would turn out this way. It's all because you're brainless. Just as the two of them were quarreling, hurried footsteps suddenly came from outside. Lu Yao took a look and saw a group of people rushing into the courtyard. They looked unfriendly. What are you doing? Is this a place where you can come in as you please? All of you get out. Chapter 164. Mu Hongyu was originally worried that Chu Luiyue would be bullied by Madame Gu, but seeing her calm and composed appearance, she was relieved. Thinking about it, Chu Luiyue could escape from the black flying python. What else could she not do? A mere Gu family was nothing to them. Forget it. Let's not talk about that. Now that you're back, we have to properly celebrate. Mu Hongyu's almond-shaped eyes sparkled as she spoke. Luyu, you said you would take us to Phoenix Restaurant last time. I haven't been there in a long time. Chu Luiyue lightly knocked her head. When your body recovers, you can go there every day. For now, you'd better stay here obediently. Mu Hongyu's smile immediately disappeared. She raised 2 fingers. I swear I definitely won't drink. Is that okay? We'll only go eat. Chu Luiyue raised her brows. Really? Mu Hongyu hurriedly nodded. Really? Liu, just promise me. I beg you. Chu Luiyue pretended to hesitate for a while before finally nodding. Okay. They had probably been heartbroken because of her for the past few days. It was time for them to relax. Then let's go tonight. Tsinhu, call Liao Zhongshu and Gu Mingfeng as well. Tsinhu scratched his head, a little troubled. Liao Zhongshu's body hasn't recovered yet. He's been bedridden. I'm afraid he can't go. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Liao Zhongshu's injuries are that serious? I remember that it was mainly some flesh wounds at that time. After a few days he should have recovered a little. Why can't he even get out of bed? Speaking of this, Mu Hongyu and Tsinhu's expressions were a little unsightly. That's right. The academy's teachers have already taken a look at him and given him medicine. But for some reason his injuries keep coming back and haven't improved. Tsinhu continued. There's also Gu Mingfeng. He hasn't returned to the academy these past 2 days. I heard that he was chased out of the Gu family. Chu Luiyue was stunned. Why would the Gu family do this all of a sudden? Mu Hongyu pursed her lips. Isn't it because of Gu Mingzhu? Gu Mingfeng has always been disliked in the Gu family. Now that Gu Mingzhu is dead, the Gu family is pushing all the blame onto him. Tsinhu clenched his fists. Anyway, he rarely went back. It's no longer considered his home. It's good that he's gone. Chu Luiyue shook his head. That's not the case. It was one thing for Gu Mingfeng to not be valued, but it was another thing for him to be kicked out. In the past he was everyone. He was in the Gu family, in the past the families. Chu Luiyue thought for a moment and said, that's right. I'm afraid we won't be able to eat today's meal. Tsinhu, go look for Gu Mingfeng. If you have any news, inform us immediately. Hongyu and I will visit Liao Zhongshu first. Upon hearing Chu Luiyue's words, the duo agreed. After all, they had gone through life and death together. They couldn't ignore him. Mu Hongyu stopped joking. I know where Liao Zhongshu lives. Come with me. The moment Chu Luiyue followed Mu Hongyu to the warrior student's residence, they attracted a lot of attention. The news of Chu Luiyue's safe return had already spread throughout the academy the day before. Many people were curious when they heard that she was coming back today. Seeing that Chu Luiyue had actually come to the warrior's residence, it naturally caused quite a commotion. Chu Luiyue ignored it and followed Mu Hongyu to a small building. Mu Hongyu walked to the door and knocked. Ji Yurong, are you there? The door was quickly opened. It was a tall and thin youth. He recognized Mu Hongyu at a glance and smiled warmly. Mu Hongyu, are you here to take a look at Zhongshu? Mu Hongyu nodded. Yes. Luyu and I are here to visit him. The youth was stunned when he heard Chu Luiyue's name. Only then did he see that there was another person behind her. A strange expression flashed across his face, but it was fleeting. So you came together. Come in. Zhongshu just woke up. You can go up and visit him. Chu Luiyue narrowed her eyes. Mu Hongyu didn't sense anything wrong. She pulled Chu Luiyue to the second floor. We'll go up first. Sorry to trouble you these few days. Ji Yurong smiled. We're all classmates. It's my duty. You guys chat. I have something to do, so I'll go out first. After saying that, he simply packed up his things, closed the door and left. Chu Luiyue looked back at him. She didn't know if it was an illusion, but she felt that Ji Yurong's footsteps seemed to be fleeing. As she went up the stairs, she asked, that Ji Yurong also lives here? That's right. He's been living here with Zhongshu. This is the martial artist area. Everyone lives together. It's not like you mystics who have good conditions and can each have your own courtyard. Zhongshu often talks about him, but he's a bit introverted and rarely interacts with us. Mu Hongyu said as she walked. However, he's really a good person. He's been taking care of Zhongshu for the past few days. Chu Luiyue nodded and didn't ask any more questions. As they spoke, the two reached the bedroom on the second floor. As soon as they entered, Chu Luiyue saw Liao Zhongshu lying on the bed and couldn't help but be shocked. In just a few days, Liao Zhongshu had lost a lot of weight. His cheeks were deeply sunken and his eyes were dim. He looked very haggard. Seeing Chu Luiyue and Ji Yurong enter, Liao Zhongshu revealed a pale smile and raised his hand with difficulty. "You're here? Sit down." Mu Hongyu furrowed her brows. "Why do you look worse than 2 days ago? Did you not take your medicine properly?" Liao Zhongshu shook his head, his voice weak. "It's fine if my body doesn't live up to expectations. But Luyu, it's great that you're back." Even though he was sick, he had heard about Chu Luiyue's matters. Thus, he was very happy to see her standing here in one piece. Chu Luiyue stepped forward and put her hand on his wrist. "What did the teacher say about your body?" Liao Zhongshu's lips moved and he coughed. Cough cough. "It's nothing. It's not a big problem. It's just that my body is too weak and I can't absorb the medicine properly. That's why I haven't gotten better. The teacher said to take the medicine for 2 days and see." Cough. Chu Luiyue frowned slightly. Mu Hongyu asked curiously. "Luyu, did you see anything?" Chu Luiyue suddenly pulled the blanket off him. "Hey Luyu." Mu Hongyu jumped in fright and tried to stop her. Unfortunately, Chu Luiyue was too fast and couldn't stop her. Liao Zhongshu didn't expect Chu Luiyue to do this either. He was instantly embarrassed and tried to pull the blanket up. However, Chu Luiyue didn't care about their expressions. Her eyes were fixed on his left leg. A piece of flesh had been bitten off his left leg, and it was swollen beyond recognition. It was twice as thick as his other leg and it almost tore his pants apart. Mu Hongyu exclaimed. What's going on?" Liao Zhongshu's face turned pale. "It's been like this since the day I came back. The teachers don't know why." Chu Luiyue pondered for a moment. "You've been poisoned. You've been poisoned." Chapter 165. Poisoned. Mu Hongyu was also shocked. She did not care about her embarrassment and quickly walked forward. "Are you sure? Do you know what kind of poison he was poisoned with?" Chu Luiyue covered Liao Zhongshu with the blanket once more. Instead of answering Mu Hongyu's question, he turned to Liao Zhongshu and asked, "Have your legs been itching for the past 2 days? Furthermore, they start bleeding whenever you scratch them?" Liao Zhongshu nodded in a daze. "That is indeed the case." "How did you know?" Chu Luiyue had only taken a glance through his clothes, yet he was able to guess it so accurately. "How I know isn't important. What's important is that the poison has already spread throughout your body. In less than 3 days it will reach your lungs. At that time there will be nothing I can do." Liao Zhongshu immediately became nervous. So serious? But I haven't even left my room since I came back. How could I be poisoned? Furthermore, the teachers didn't say anything about it. This poison is known as red blood goo, and it's an extremely rare type of poison. Once infected, the wounds on the body will fester over and over again, unable to heal. Even worse, the area around the wound will rapidly fill with blood, and the skin will become brittle. The itch will be unbearable, and the slightest touch will cause the wound to rupture. In the end, your skin will crack and you will die of blood loss. With every word Chu Luiyue spoke, Mu Hongyu and Liao Zhongshu's faces turned paler. By the end, their faces were as pale as ghosts. This was especially true for Liao Zhongshu. He was already on the verge of death, and after hearing those words, he found it hard to breathe. This? I don't know what happened either. Could it be that I? He couldn't finish his words, but Chu Luiyue and Mu Hongyu knew what he was worried about. Even the teachers of the academy couldn't see through such a formidable poison, let alone treat it. This meant that he only had a few days left to live. Mu Hongyu looked worriedly at Chu Luiyue. "Liu, is it really that serious? Then do you have any ideas? Since you were able to recognize it, you must have a solution, right?" Liao Zhongshu also looked at her with a glimmer of hope. Chu Luiyue remained silent for a moment. "I recognize this poison, but if you want to completely cure it, you need at least 100 herbs. Most of them are extremely precious. It will be difficult to find them in a short period of time. If it was her previous life, it wouldn't be a problem for her to deal with this kind of poison. But with the current circumstances, it was really difficult. There were some herbs that could not be found even in the entire country." The light in Liao Zhongshu's eyes gradually dimming eyes. He was stunned for a moment before he smiled bitterly. "I guess I can only wait." Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Luiyue and then at Liao Zhongshu. Her heart felt like it was being roasted on fire. She and Liao Zhongshu had always had a good relationship. In addition, Liao Zhongshu had helped them a lot in surviving this time. The friendship between them had long surpassed that of ordinary fellow disciples. But now, they were actually going to watch him die right in front of their eyes? The room fell into silence for a moment. Chu Luiyue suddenly asked, "How did you get poisoned?" Liao Zhongshu was at a loss. "I don't know. I was fine before I went to Wanling Mountain. But after I came back, my wounds kept worsening." "So you were poisoned in the academy after you came back?" "I think so. After I came back, I didn't even leave this room." As Liao Zhongshu spoke, he frowned and fell into deep thought. "But I don't know what went wrong either. Ever since I came back to recuperate, I've been taking medicine and resting according to the teacher's instructions. I haven't touched anything else." Chu Liwei crossed her arms and suddenly asked, "How does Ji Yurong treat you?" "Him? He treats me very well. He has been taking care of me for the past few days. Do you suspect that he poisoned me?" Liao Zhongshu finally understood what Chu Liwei meant, but he subconsciously denied it. "That's impossible. We've been living here since the day we were admitted to the academy. We get along well. Although we're not as close as biological brothers, we have a good relationship. He has no reason to harm me." Mu Hongyu could not help but interrupt. "That's right. Liu, I know that Ji Yurong. He's a good person. I don't think he would do such a sinister thing. You can't judge a book by its cover. If it wasn't him, did you poison yourself?" Chu Luiyue disagreed with the two's words. If he really didn't do anything, why did Ji Yurong look so guilty when he saw her? Mu Hongyu and Liao Zhongshu were speechless. Chu Luiyue's words were reasonable. "What do we do now? We can't just arrest him and interrogate him, right? Then, even if he did it, he definitely wouldn't admit to it." Mu Hongyu rubbed her temples and felt that her head was hurting. Chu Luiyue looked around and saw an empty bowl beside Liao Zhongshu. She could faintly smell a faint medicinal fragrance. "Is this the bowl you drink your medicine from?" "So clean." Liao Zhongshu nodded. "Every time I drink my medicine, Yurong would immediately wash the bowl. He said that the smell was too strong and he was worried that it would affect my rest. So, he would wait until I finished drinking it and wash it before bringing it back." Liao Zhongshu's voice gradually trailed off. He looked at the bowl with a strange expression. Could it really be him? At first, he thought that Ji Yurong was taking care of him and was very grateful. But now that he thought about it, it was indeed strange. He was a patient. So what if he smelled the medicine? Even he did not care. Why did Ji Yurong care so much about it? Chapter 166. Mu Hongyu was shocked and hurriedly followed him. Heaven Medicine Pavilion? Isn't that where the academy stores all kinds of herbs? Are you going there now, to get the herbs? Chu Luiyue nodded. As the top academy in country Yaoqin, Tianlu Academy should have a lot of good stuff stored there. Let's go take a look first. I'll go by myself. Go and check if Ji Yurong has been acting strangely recently or if he's been in contact with anyone. He's from an ordinary family, so he must have gotten the poison from someone else. Mu Hongyu was a little hesitant. It's not a problem for me to check, but Heaven Medicine Pavilion? That place is the celestial physician's territory. I'm afraid it won't be easy for you to get the herbs there. Mu Hongyu's words were very tactful. In fact, for so many years, other than the celestial physician's people, it was difficult for others to even enter Heaven Medicine Pavilion. It was not that they did not allow people to enter, but the rules were too strict. The academy required that every student who wanted to get herbs from Heaven Medicine Pavilion had to make a declaration. They would only be allowed if they had a good reason. If it was the celestial physicians group, they could easily get what they wanted as long as they said that they wanted to refine medicine. However, it was not so simple for warriors and celestial physicians group. Chu Luiyue raised his brows. Then, are warriors and Shen masters not qualified to go? That's not it. Actually, we only go there once in a while when we're injured. Mu Hongyu wrinkled her nose and was a little indignant. You don't know, but the celestial physicians group is very arrogant. They're very hard to please. Chu Luiyue laughed. Celestial physicians' requirements for talent were very high. Normal celestial physician did have this problem. Although I didn't cultivate there, I passed the celestial physician's exam. They won't make things difficult for me, right? Mu Hongyu pursed her lips. That might not be the case. Chu Luiyue patted her arm. Don't worry. The two of them split up. Chu Luiyue walked all the way to the back of the mountain. The Heaven Medicine Pavilion was built on the steepest mountain in Tianlu Academy. Most people would not come here for no reason. Therefore, the further up the mountain they went, the more deserted their surroundings became. After about the time it took to brew a cup of tea, Chu Luiyue finally saw the plaque that read Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. The Heavenly Medicine Pavilion had a total of 5 floors. From the surface, it looked no different from an ordinary building. However, when Chu Luiyue approached it, he felt a formless fluctuation. Outside Heaven's Medicine Pavilion, an extremely powerful barrier had been set up. Outside the bronze gate stood 2 youths who seemed to be guarding it. Seeing Chu Luiyue, one of the youths asked coldly, "Who are you? What is it?" He was stunned for a moment before he realized that Emo Liang was actually trying to tease Chu Luiyue. She couldn't write one and she still couldn't write another one. Wouldn't that be embarrassing? Ever since Chu Luiyue entered the academy, she had always been praised and in the limelight. Now was the perfect time to show her who was the boss. So many people praised her as a genius, but now it seemed that her brain wasn't that bright. The two exchanged a look of understanding and didn't say anything else. They just looked at Chu Luiyue, waiting for her to make a fool of herself. Sure enough, Chu Luiyue still couldn't leave a mark on it. She paused, seeming a little embarrassed and confused. Cui Yao and Emo Liang almost couldn't hold back their smiles. "Chu Luiyue, it seems like there's a problem with this one too. How about we change it for you?" Emo Liang said loudly, his tone mocking. Chu Luiyue looked at him and hesitated for a moment before saying, "Then I'll have to trouble you." "No trouble, no trouble. We're all from the same school, so it's only right that we help each other." Emo Liang held back his laughter and threw another wooden board to Chu Luiyue. This time, Chu Luiyue had a total of 3 boards in her hands. "Hey Chu Luiyue, if this still doesn't work, why don't we just give you a few more? Once you try 100 times, you'll definitely find a good one, right?" "Ah." Cui Yao didn't hide his ridicule and laughed out loud. Even a fool would be able to see the problem at this point. But unexpectedly, Chu Luiyue didn't show the slightest bit of embarrassment. Instead, she smiled and shook her head. "No need, these are enough." With that, she walked to the side and plucked an apricot leaf. Seeing her actions, Cui Yao's laughter came to an abrupt stop. Emo Liang also felt a bit uneasy. Chu Luiyue used the apricot leaf to lightly wipe the blackboard, then started writing again. As the tip of the brush moved, a smooth white handwriting could be clearly seen. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from LoveNet. Chapter 167. Black sage vine and bitter apricot leaf were natural enemies. After wiping with bitter apricot leaf, a thin layer of coating would be left. Although the brush didn't have ink, it was made of snow wolf fur and could easily leave a mark on it. This method was simple, but those who didn't understand it would be stumped. The Cui and Yao duo wanted to use this to make things difficult for Chu Luiyue and embarrass her once. When Chu Luiyue said that the item was broken and asked to change it, the two were secretly pleased with themselves, thinking that they had succeeded in pranking her. But now, looking at the words on the blackboard, they couldn't laugh anymore. The smile on Cui Yao's face didn't fade, but his eyes were full of shock. He looked very stiff and strange. Emo Liang wasn't any better. He realized almost immediately, Chu Luiyue did it on purpose. She clearly knew what to do but pretended not to know. They thought that they had tricked her, but in fact they were under her control. When the two of them were laughing at her, she was probably very pleased with herself. Chu Luiyue wrote a line, then looked up at the two with a slight smile. "So this thing isn't broken. Look, it's written quite smoothly." Cui Yao's expression was so ugly that it looked like he had swallowed a fly. Emo Liang pointed at Chu Luiyue, suppressing his anger. "You already knew how to write this. You tricked us?" Chu Luiyue blinked. "That's right." She said it so casually that the two men didn't know what to say for a moment. This Chu Luiyue was too arrogant. "You. How dare you? Chu Luiyue, do you know where you are? How dare you deceive us in public?" Emo Liang cursed angrily. Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. "Weren't you two the ones who made things difficult for me first? I just came to take some herbs and you tried to stop me. I'm just giving you a taste of your own medicine. Is that too much?" Chu Luiyue's words silenced the two. Yes. It was true that they were the first to make things difficult for her, but this was the usual practice. Other than the celestial physician, everyone who came here was always like this. Chu Luiyue was no exception. It was just that, he didn't expect that he would kick an iron plate. Not only did he fail to trick Chu Luiyue, but he also became a joke. Chu Luiyue lowered his head and continued writing. "Senior brothers, please wait for a moment. I still have a lot of things to write." When Cui Yao and Cui Yao heard this, they immediately looked over, only to see Chu Luiyue's pen moving like a dragon. His movements were smooth as if he didn't need to think at all. In a short period of time, the black wooden board was already half filled. However, Chu Luiyue had no intention of stopping. Only then did the two of them realize that things seemed to have spiraled out of control. Chu Luiyue had clearly come prepared. Most importantly, she had 3 black wooden boards in her hands. Chapter 168. Mo Liang thought he was hallucinating, but Cui Yao didn't seem to be joking. He was stunned for a while before he muttered, "How? How is this possible?" Cui Yao didn't want to say another word. How could he not be shocked? He wanted to ask the same question too. When he handed the list over, Mr. Zhuorong frowned and looked at it for a long time. However, as he looked at it, his brows relaxed and there was a hint of excitement in his eyes. Then he put aside his work and went to prepare the herbs himself. Cui Yao thought of the smile on Mr. Zhuorong's face when he left and felt awkward. Mr. Zhuorong had always been strict. He wouldn't even approve the list of celestial physician students. However, Chu Luiyue, she wrote 3 black sage vines. How could she do that? Thank you, senior. I'll wait here then. Chu Luiyue said with a smile. Cui Yao looked away. Out of sight, out of mind. Mo Liang wanted to ask more, but seeing Cui Yao's expression, he could only swallow his words. There was an awkward silence in the room. After a few minutes, the door finally opened again. A slightly plump middle-aged man walked out quickly. When he saw Chu Luiyue standing in front of the door, his eyes lit up. "You're Chu Luiyue?" Chu Luiyue nodded. "Greetings, Mr. Zhuorong." Zhuorong laughed and waved a golden bag in his hand. "There's no need to stand on ceremony. The things you want are all here." Chu Luiyue was surprised. "A Qingkuan bag? You know what this is?" Zhuorong didn't expect Chu Luiyue to recognize the Qingkuan bag. However, on second thought, she used to be the eldest daughter of the Chu family. It wasn't surprising that she knew about it. "That's right. This is indeed a Qingkuan bag. You asked for too many things, so I put them all here for convenience's sake. After you go back, take out all the things inside and return this Qingkuan bag." Zhuorong's words were filled with pride, but Mo Liang and the other man beside him had already widened their eyes in shock. Zhuorong Laosher is actually so generous to Chu Luiyue? That Qingkuan pouch was extremely precious. It was priceless. Even the teachers in the academy might not necessarily have one. Zhuorong Laosher had only obtained this item because he had saved a person of high status a few years ago. At that time he had attracted the envy of many people. Normally, it would be difficult for them to even take a look at it. However, Mr. Zhuorong had actually lent it to Chu Luiyue. Chu Luiyue was also very surprised. If it was in her previous life, a Qingkuan bag wouldn't be considered a treasure to her. However, this was country Yaochen, so there shouldn't be many people who had it. This was the first time Mr. Zhuorong had met her, and he was really taking care of her. The smile on her face deepened. She took a few steps forward and took the Qingkuan bag with both hands. "Thank you, Mr. Zhuorong. I will return it as soon as possible." How could he not take advantage of a free lunch? Chapter 169. Chu Luiyue brought the herbs back to her residence. She took out all the herbs from the Qingkuan bag and placed them in order. Just as she was about to return to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion to return the Qingkuan bag to Zhuorong, she heard a commotion outside. She walked to the door and just as she opened it, she saw Zhuorong bringing a few other teachers into the courtyard. When Zhuorong saw her, he immediately smiled. "Luyu, these are the teachers who diagnosed Liao Zhongshu previously. I brought them here to see you." The few teachers silently sized up Chu Luiyue. Zhuorong said that Chu Luiyue knew what kind of poison Liao Zhongshu was afflicted with and had a way to temporarily suppress the poison in his body. They were shocked and curious, so they followed Zhuorong here. However, they were more suspicious in their hearts. Chu Luiyue didn't even go to the celestial physician's place to cultivate. Furthermore, during the entrance examination, didn't they say that her talent in this field was limited? Why did it sound like she was very formidable now? Chu Luiyue knew that they weren't here to see her, but to see how she was going to refine those herbs. She didn't point it out. She greeted the teachers and invited them into the house. "Zhuorong teacher, you came at the right time. I just took out the herbs from the Qingkuan bag and returned it to you." Chu Luiyue said as she returned the Qingkuan bag to Zhuorong. Zhuorong accepted it with a smile. "You're quite nimble. If there's such a thing in the future, don't hesitate to ask." Chu Luiyue pursed her lips and smiled. "Then Luyu will thank you in advance." The conversation between the two of them made the other teachers beside them secretly shocked. Zhuorong usually treasured this Qingkuan bag so much that he wouldn't even let them borrow it. But now he was very generous to Chu Luiyue. "Those are the herbs you took from Heaven's Medicine Pavilion?" Another teacher pointed at the jade boxes piled up in the room and asked, "Isn't this a little too much?" Chu Luiyue smiled faintly. Teacher Xian-song, don't worry. Lu Yu knows how difficult it is to obtain these herbs. He will definitely make the best use of them and won't waste any of them. Xian-song looked at her suspiciously. Make the best use of everything? How are you going to refine so many herbs by yourself? Aren't you exaggerating a little? Chu Luiyue didn't try to defend himself. Enough. Xian-song, you don't even know what kind of poison Liao Zhongshu was poisoned with. Why are you still talking so much? Zhuorong's words made Xian-song swallow his remaining words. He snorted. Good. Let's hear what you have to say first. The remaining few immediately pricked up their ears. Chu Luiyue was slightly moved. Actually, I don't know much about this poison. I've only seen it by chance. Of course, she couldn't completely reveal her background, so she simply mentioned a few words. Her words were very vague. Zhuorong and the others wanted to ask more, but they realized that Chu Luiyue didn't seem to know everything either. In the end, they could only give up. So you're saying that you don't have complete confidence in this recipe? Aren't you treating Liao Zhongshu's life like a game? What if something happens? Xian-song was silent for a while before he spoke with a frown. What else can happen? Others might not know, but don't you know Liao Zhongshu's current situation? If we delay for a few more days, he'll be dead by now. What's there to talk about? Zhuorong impatiently interrupted Xian-song and waved his hand at Chu Luiyue. This guy is stubborn and inflexible. Lu Yu, don't worry about him. Just do whatever you want. Xian-song resentfully shut his mouth. Chu Luiyue sighed softly in her heart. She originally wanted to quietly refine the medicine for Liao Zhongshu, but she didn't expect Zhuorong to be so interested in this matter. From the looks of it, they clearly wanted to see how she would refine the medicine. Chu Luiyue decided to ignore them. She walked over to take out the herbs and began to prepare them one by one. The Imperial Palace, the Imperial Study. Rong Xiu stood quietly outside the door wearing a large black cloak. He was tall and slender, and just by standing there, he seemed to make the surrounding scenery lose its color. Many palace maids looked at him from afar, their eyes full of admiration. Your Highness Prince Li is really good looking. I don't think there's anyone in the imperial capital who can compare to him just from his elegant bearing alone. Isn't that so? When His Highness Prince Li appeared at the Crown Prince's birthday banquet, he won the hearts of countless women. It's a pity that His Highness Prince Li's health isn't good and he doesn't come to the palace often. It's hard to even meet him. I wonder which noble lady will have the honor of marrying His Highness Prince Li in the future? Sigh, it's a pity that His Highness Prince Li is weak and doesn't have any real power. He's just an idle prince and can't be considered the best. So what? It's already a lifetime of good fortune to be able to see that face every day. Who dares to ask for more? His Highness Prince Li used to be very powerful, but now... Shoo! You dare to say that? Do you want to die? Bang! The sound of something breaking suddenly came from the study. The palace servants hiding in the dark were startled and immediately scattered like birds and beasts. Rong Xiu looked up, and one couldn't see any emotions in his deep eyes. Someone hurriedly retreated from the imperial study. Your Majesty, please calm down. Your Majesty, please calm down. I'll leave now. This battered and exhausted person was the first elder of the Chu family, Chu Xiao. He wiped the cold sweat off his head. His entire body was covered in dust. He originally came to see His Majesty today to plead for the Crown Prince, but he didn't expect that the moment he mentioned the Crown Prince, His Majesty would fly into a rage and chase him out. Only then did he realize that the Crown Prince had really angered His Majesty this time. He was the one who was truly stupid to come here so rashly. Chu Xiao heaved a heavy sigh. Too many things had happened during this period of time. His mind was actually starting to become muddled. Turning to any doctor in a desperate situation had instead put himself and the Crown Prince in even more danger. Eunuch Min also walked out and glanced at Chu Xiao. Lord Chu Xiao, please don't come to the palace during this period of time. Chu Xiao wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end he could only agree. Thank you, Eunuch Min. Eunuch Min despised him in his heart. Chu Xiao was old and muddle-headed. Chu Ning was now highly favored by the emperor and was already somewhat dissatisfied with the Chu family. Yet, he chose to enter the palace at this time to plead for the crown prince. Was he not afraid of dragging the entire Chu family down with him? Eunuch Min couldn't be bothered with him. He looked up at Rong Xiu, who was standing not far away. His face immediately filled with an eager smile as he took small steps forward. Your Highness Prince Li, you're finally here. His Majesty has been missing you for the past few days. Rong Xiu's lips curled into a lazy smile as he said indifferently, My health hasn't been very good lately. I haven't been feeling well for the past few days. Now that I've recovered a little, I immediately came to visit Imperial Father. Please come in. His Majesty was still angry. If it were an ordinary person, Eunuch Min wouldn't dare to invite them in, but Prince Li was different. When Chu Xiao heard this, he couldn't help but look up at Prince Li, who rarely showed himself. Rong Xiu nonchalantly glanced at him, nodded, and walked toward the imperial study. Chu Xiao couldn't help but look over, but Eunuch Min quickly urged him to leave. The moment Rong Xiu entered the room, he saw shattered teacups scattered all over the floor. Emperor Jiawen's face was still filled with anger. Rong Xiu lightly smiled. Father, what made you so angry? It's not worth mentioning. When Emperor Jiawen saw him, his expression became much gentler. On the other hand, have you been feeling better recently? Thank you for your concern, Father. I'm already much better and I can already go out and walk around these few days. Emperor Jiawen heaved a sigh of relief, but he still knitted his brows. You can't keep being like this. When there's a chance, I'll definitely find a stronger celestial physician to take a look at you. Rong Xiu smiled and looked nonchalant. I was born like this and I've already gotten used to it. Father, you don't have to be too worried. How can I not be worried? You're me. You didn't have a mother to take care of you when you were young. Then you left the imperial city at a young age and went to Mingyue Tianshan alone. I owe you a lot for so many years. Rong Xiu looked down. Father, you're being too serious. Your son understands your intentions. Emperor Jiawen looked at him for a while before shaking his head and sighing. You've always been the most sensible, unlike those useless ones. Forget it. You don't like these things, so I won't talk to you anymore. I called you here today to ask you something. You've been back in the imperial city for quite some time. Have you taken a liking to any noble lady? Rong Xiu was dazed. Imperial Father, what are you? Emperor Jiawen laughed out loud. You're already a prince now, but you don't even have anyone to serve you. When you start a family, you naturally have to start a family before you start a career. I've already asked my subordinates to prepare quite a number of portraits of noble ladies of suitable age. You can choose from them and choose a date to get married. Digression. Cough, I'll add one more chapter today and pick another day. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from my UN. Chapter 170. Rong Xiu was silent for a moment. He didn't expect that his father had called him here for this matter. Father, my brothers haven't gotten married yet, so it seems a little too early for me to think about this. Emperor Jiawen sneered. Those royal brothers of yours, none of them make me feel at ease. Let's not talk about them. I haven't been able to take care of you for so many years, so I naturally have to help you choose a suitable marriage. Emperor Jiawen raised his chin. I know that you haven't been back for long and you rarely go out. Hence, you're not familiar with the ladies in the imperial city. The portraits are all there, you can take a look at them yourself. If you find one that you like, just tell me. Emperor Jiawen waved his hands and looked as if he would immediately grant the marriage to whoever Rong Xiu chose. This scene made Rong Xiu unsure whether to laugh or cry. He didn't even look at the portraits as he directly said, Father, I've always been weak. Imperial Father, this son has been frail and sickly since young. If I were to marry a wife, I would only be causing trouble for other people. Let's put this matter aside for now. What the hell are you talking about? Whoever marries you, that's her fortune. Who dares to say that you're a burden? Just pick one. When Emperor Jiawen heard Rong Xiu say this, his face immediately darkened. Speaking of which, Rong Xiu was the prince who had been by his side for the shortest amount of time. Logically speaking, the relationship between the father and son wasn't very deep. However, nobody knew that he loved this child the most in his heart. The C family's fourth young lady is quite talented, but it's a pity that she's a concubine, so she's not good enough for you. However, if you like her, you can marry her and make her your consort first. The Lu family comes from a business family, and the ladies in the family all have some power, so I don't like them. The Yang family's big missy might be mediocre, but her looks and temper are top-notch. She's worthy of being called gentle and virtuous. You can take a look at her first. Oh right, there's also Count Jinbei's daughter. Emperor Jiawen almost listed all the most outstanding ladies in the imperial city. To an ordinary person, these ladies all came from noble backgrounds and they were all excellent. But in Emperor Jiawen's eyes, they all had their flaws. However, he could not be blamed for this. Just Rong Xiu's looks alone were enough to make most of the girls pale in comparison. Moreover, he was one of the only two princes with a title. Once he got married, he would be endlessly favored. Emperor Jiawen also raised his eyebrows, and it was understandable that his standards were higher. As for Rong Xiu's body, in his opinion, it was not a big problem at all. When Rong Xiu saw Emperor Jiawen's excited look, He raised his brows, clenched his fist, and coughed twice. Emperor Jiawen paused and looked at him worriedly. Why are you coughing again? Is your body still not fully recovered? Rongxiu shook his head. His lips were slightly pale as he smiled. Your son is fine. Imperial father, you don't have to worry, cough cough. Seeing him like this, Emperor Jiawen didn't have the mood to continue the topic. Forget it. Since you're not willing, let's not talk about it today. However, you still have to take this matter to heart. If you have time, come out more often and see if there's anyone you like. I can't directly decide for you, so everything depends on you. Rongxiu slightly bowed. Thank you for your understanding, Imperial Father. Emperor Jiawen shook his head and sighed. I wonder what kind of woman you like. What kind of woman I like? A beautiful face flashed across Rongxiu's mind. Even though she was a little immature, she had already started to show her beauty. Especially that pair of eyes, they were as bright and moving as the starry night. His gaze moved slightly and he hid the emotions in his eyes. Your son still has a request. Oh? After you came back to the Imperial City, you've been resting in your residence. This is the first time you've taken the initiative to make a request to me. How rare. Tell me about it. Rongxiu was silent for a moment. I've been away for many years and didn't have the chance to pay respects to my mother. Now that I'm back, I want to fulfill my duty as a son. Upon hearing Rongxiu mention his mother, Emperor Jiawen was dazed. He then leaned against the chair, sighed, and closed his eyes. She did leave for many years. At this moment, Emperor Jiawen seemed to have aged a lot, and his tone was filled with unconcealable regret and reminiscence. It's good that you still miss your mother. That's good, but you should know that your mother's mausoleum isn't in the Imperial Mausoleum. Rongxiu looked calm. I know. I remember that you once stayed in Tianlu Academy for a very long time. That's right. Back then, she didn't want to stay in the palace, so she went to Tianlu Academy. Your mother was close to Tianlu Academy's director back then, and she was talented and capable. Hence, she became half a teacher in the academy. She stayed there for 2 years until she passed away and she never came back. Emperor Jiawen spoke slowly as if he were telling a story that had nothing to do with him. However, his helpless and yearning expression, as well as his slightly trembling hands, clearly indicated that his heart was not as calm as it seemed. Even though many years had passed, that person and those things were still deeply engraved in his heart, and they couldn't be erased. Rongxiu quietly glanced at him, and his gaze was calm without any ripples. It was as if he didn't care about Emperor Jiawen's nostalgic look. However, he quickly hid his nonchalant expression. So, I want to go to Tianlu Academy to see where my mother used to stay. Chapter 171. At Tianlu Academy, Chu Luiyue started processing the herbs while Zhuorong and the other teachers watched. She first took out a palm-sized white shell and carefully rubbed it on a grindstone. After a while, fine white powder fell off. The material was thick and it was very troublesome to grind it. Chu Luiyue rubbed it for about 15 minutes, but there was still more than half of it left. Xian Tsang, who was at the side, tried to hold it in. In the end, when he saw how clumsy Chu Luiyue was, he finally spoke up. Chu Luiyue, do you know that this isn't how you handle the white elephant shell? Chu Luiyue looked up in shock. Really? But didn't the book say that the white elephant shell needs to be ground into powder for it to be fully effective? Xian Tsang rubbed his glabella. That's right, but based on your current speed, how long will it take for you to completely grind this white elephant shell into powder? Moreover, this is only the first one. There's another one in the box. Have you calculated how much time you'll need? Chu Luiyue seemed to be in a predicament as she humbly asked for advice. Then what do you think we should do? Xian Tsang shook his head in disappointment and said to Zhuorong, Look at her. Look at her. She's so clumsy. Where's the slightest bit of intelligence? She can't even handle one white elephant shell, let alone all the other herbs. I think we don't have to stay here and watch. Her method is most likely unreliable. As for Liao Zhongshu's injury, I'll go back and think of a way myself. Then Xian Tsang ignored Zhuorong's protests and stood up to leave. The remaining teachers looked at each other awkwardly. Zhuorong, this. Xian Tsang's words make sense. Chu Luiyue had already said that she didn't come up with the prescription on her own. Instead, she accidentally got it from someone else. Besides, she didn't remember it very clearly and most of it was just guessing. It's really hard to say if it's effective. I heard that she barely passed the entrance exam. I think she really doesn't have much talent. Zhuorong, you're probably thinking too much this time. I'd better go back and think of a way with Xian Tsang. Everyone, I'll take my leave first. Wait for me. I still have some matters to attend to. Xian Tsang left with 2 teachers, leaving only Zhuorong and another teacher. The atmosphere was a little awkward. Chu Luiyue asked apologetically. Mr. Zhuorong, did I do something wrong? Zhuorong coughed. It's nothing. They just have their own things to do. You don't have to worry about them. Just focus on refining medicine. Chu Luiyue wanted to say something but hesitated. In the end, he didn't say anything and continued polishing the white elephant shell. After a while, she finally grinded it into powder. She wiped her sweat and took out a second white elephant shell to start polishing. Finally, the other teacher could not stand it any longer and left after apologizing to Zhuorong. Zhuorong looked at Chu Luiyue in confusion. Could it be that he was wrong? Chu Luiyue's talent was actually not as outstanding as he had expected? But if that was the case, how did she directly resolve the difficulties Cui Yao and Cui Yao had placed her in? Zhuorong stared at Chu Luiyue and pondered for a long time. A vague idea appeared in his mind. Could it be that Chu Luiyue was deliberately hiding her talent? But why? Many people dreamed of having the talent of a celestial physician. With such potential, anyone would be eager to show it to others. Only Chu Luiyue was a little strange. Zhuorong thought for a while. He didn't want to deliberately expose it, so he found an excuse and left. In the end, only Chu Luiyue was left in the room. She exhaled softly. She didn't want these people to notice anything, so she deliberately pretended that she was not good at anything. It didn't matter if she was despised by them. The most important thing was to refine the medicine well. Zhuorong seemed to have noticed something, but he didn't pursue the matter. Chu Luiyue closed the door and windows properly before focusing her attention on the pile of herbs. Now, there wasn't much time left. Xinhu asked around in the school and confirmed that Gu Mingfeng hadn't come to school for the past 2 days. He specially asked a teacher for leave and went out to look for Gu Mingfeng. Of course, he wouldn't be able to find him so quickly by himself. Fortunately, Xinhu had a group of friends in the imperial capital. As long as he shouted, someone would immediately help him. After running around for half a day, he finally found Gu Mingfeng in a dilapidated house in the evening. But when he saw Gu Mingfeng, Xinhu was shocked. His face and body were covered in injuries. What happened to you? Who hit you? Xinhu was furious. We'll take revenge for you. Gu Mingfeng dodged as if he didn't want others to see him in such a sorry state. However, when he heard Xinhu's words, he paused. In the end, he calmly revealed his injury. The corners of his mouth twitched. Thank you. But you're not his match, so forget it. Xinhu glared at him. What do you mean forget it? Even if I'm not his match, there's still Lu Yu and Hong Yu. They asked me to look for you. If they see you like this, they won't let it go so easily. Gu Mingfeng's heart skipped a beat. They asked you to come? Yes. You should know that Lu Yu is back safely. We planned to celebrate at Phoenix Restaurant today, but you and Zhongshu can't go. Lu Yu and Hong Yu went to look after Zhongshu, and they asked me to come out and find you. Gu Mingfeng's throat seemed to be blocked by something. It took him a while to find his voice. It's the Gu family. Xinhu's voice suddenly rose. The Gu family? Why did they do this to you? Didn't you already? Gu Mingfeng didn't say anything. Because he was chased out of the Gu family, many people came to find trouble with him. Over the years, many people in the Gu family didn't like him. If they could make him suffer now, it would be a great achievement for Gu Yunfei. Who wouldn't do it? He wanted to return to school after his injuries recovered, but he didn't expect Xinhu to come looking for him. Xinhu patted him on the shoulder and said seriously, Don't worry. Don't worry, we are friends who have gone through life and death together. We definitely won't ignore you. Let's go back first. Lu Yu and Hong Yu are still waiting for us. Gu Mingfeng didn't know what he was feeling. After hesitating for a long time, he finally nodded. Okay. Mobile users, please browse for a better reading experience from Love Network. Chapter 172. After Zhuorong and the rest left, Chu Liyue's actions became much faster. She stretched out her hand and with a thought, a red flame suddenly appeared in her fair palm. That small cluster of flame was as agile as a spirit. Although it was weak, it was filled with vitality. Chu Liyue's eyes widened slightly. This was the first time she summoned her own force after officially becoming a rank 1 warrior. If it was a normal rank 1 warrior, it would be impossible to draw the force out of their body at this stage. Only those who had broken through to rank 4 could do it. But a celestial physician was different. A celestial physician used force to refine medicine. Chu Liyue was only a rank 1 warrior now, so the force she could summon was just a small cluster. Although it was not enough to refine medicine, it was much better than using the big pot to refine medicine. Chu Luiyue found a square cauldron for refining medicine and placed her hand on the cauldron's handle, injecting the flame into it. This square cauldron for refining medicine was given by Second Master Yen. When Chu Luiyue was checking the gift, she took a fancy to it and thought that she was lacking one, so she brought it to the academy. Wah! That small spark fell into the square cauldron and instantly burned fiercely. Chu Luiyue's eyes lit up. This square cauldron was really good stuff. Previously she only felt that the material of this square cauldron was good, but she didn't expect the effect to be so unexpected. Using this square cauldron to refine medicine could save her a lot of energy. With such a convenient thing, Chu Luiyue heaved a sigh of relief and prepared to put the herbs in one by one. When the second white elephant shell fell into it, it was immediately engulfed by the red flame. In a blink of an eye, it turned into a handful of powder. Chu Luiyue was stunned for a moment. A celestial physician used force to refine medicine and her speed was naturally incomparable to ordinary people, but wasn't this too fast? Did her force have such a strong effect on herbs? Chu Luiyue suddenly realized something. She pursed her lips and tried to put in the second herb. It was 100-year-old heaven-guard ginseng. It was as long as a person's forearm and several vines were tightly wrapped around it. It was cold to the touch and its texture was hard. The most useful part of this heaven-guard ginseng was the vine in the middle. However, if one wanted to fully utilize its medicinal properties, they would have to squeeze out its juice, which would take a lot of effort. Chu Luiyue carefully controlled the flame, and the tongue of the flame gently licked the heaven-guard ginseng. The tendrils on the outside quickly withered, and a drop of yellowish-brown medicinal juice appeared in the square cauldron. Chu Luiyue stared blankly, not daring to believe it for a moment. This refining speed was almost comparable to a third-grade celestial physician. Generally speaking, the stronger a celestial physician was, the faster the efficiency of refining medicine would be. She was prepared to fight a long battle, but she never thought that her speed would be so fast. Most importantly, the concoction that was refined was extremely clear and clean, extremely pure. In this way it would save her a lot of effort and the effect of the medicine would be even better. Chu Luiyue stared at it for a while, still feeling a little incredulous. In her previous life she had a rare Tianjing Yuan meridian. Whether it was as a martial artist, a Shen master or a celestial physician, she had all the advantages. The force nourished by the Tianjing Yuan meridian was naturally incomparable to ordinary people in terms of refining medicine. But now she clearly only had a Daijing Yuan meridian, and it was not much worse than her previous Tianjing Yuan meridian. There was definitely a problem. Chu Luiyue had seen a celestial physician with a Daijing Yuan meridian before. Even if they had cultivated for many years, they were naturally limited by force and could not catch up to the Tianjing Yuan meridian. But now, Chu Luiyue almost wanted to check again if she had a Daijing Yuan meridian. She took a deep breath and calmed herself down. It was impossible for her to remember something like this wrongly. This body, after reconstructing the Yuan meridian, was indeed a Daijing Yuan meridian. But the force nourished by this Yuan meridian was indeed comparable to the Tianjing Yuan meridian. Chu Luiyue's heart beat wildly. Her Yuan meridian would perhaps become her greatest reliance. Chu Luiyue closed her eyes and suppressed the surging emotions in her heart. When she opened her eyes again, the shock and suspicion in her eyes had all faded away, and she had regained her usual calmness. But no one knew what kind of storm the surging undercurrent under the calmness would stir up in the future. Chu Luiyue began to methodically put in the remaining medicinal herbs. Time passed by slowly. When night fell, the various medicinal herbs that had been piled up like a small mountain in the room had all been processed by Chu Luiyue. Flames burned in the square cauldron, and the various medicinal herbs merged into a ball of dark green liquid that quietly floated in the air. A strong medicinal fragrance permeated the air. "Luyu, I'm back." Mu Hongyu's voice came from outside the door. Chu Luiyue poured another ball of flames into the square cauldron before walking over to open the door. "Luyu, your guess is so accurate. That Ji Yurong actually. What's that smell? It's so fragrant." Mu Hongyu's face was filled with excitement, but before she could finish her sentence, her attention was attracted by the medicinal fragrance. She looked over and saw that there was a square cauldron in the middle of the room, and there was a red flame burning in it. Her eyes widened in shock. "Damn. Luyu, you're actually refining medicine?" Chu Luiyue didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pulled her into the room, closed the door and said, "Didn't I tell you that I was going to Heaven Medicine Pavilion? You didn't say that you could actually refine medicine like this." Mu Hongyu walked over in amazement. Such a fierce flame. Didn't you say that you were only a stage 1 warrior? How did you have such an abundant amount of force to refine medicine? Although she wasn't a celestial physician, she knew that celestial physicians would use force to transform into flames when refining medicine. She knew that she didn't have this ability, so she couldn't be a celestial physician. However, Chu Luiyue, this wasn't something that a stage 1 warrior could do. Seeing Mu Hongyu like this, Chu Luiyue could only secretly rejoice that she came back late and didn't see the medicinal herbs piled up in the room. Otherwise she would probably tear the roof off the house. Didn't you say that you found something just now? How's that Ji Yurong? Chu Luiyue changed the topic without batting an eyelid. Mu Hongyu then returned to her senses and hurriedly said, Yes. Let me tell you that Ji Yurong is indeed problematic. I originally planned to follow him today to see if there was anything strange about him, but he was very cautious. He cultivated diligently the whole day and didn't do anything out of the ordinary. After that, I asked some people in the academy who were closer to him, and guess what? He likes Chu Xianmin. Hearing this name, Chu Luiyue raised her eyebrows. Although he never told anyone, I heard that he had a hangover on the day Chu Xianmin married the crown prince. This Ji Yurong is usually an especially honest and introverted person and has always been well behaved. Why did he do such a thing on that day? Chu Luiyue glanced at the medicine in the square cauldron and asked, What's the relationship between the two of them? I find this very strange too. There's almost no interaction between the two of them. You know that Chu Xianmin and I don't like each other, but I've never seen Ji Yurong speak up for her. If I didn't find out about his hangover, I really wouldn't have known that he was interested in Chu Xianmin. Chapter 173. In the past, Chu Xianmin was pretty, had a noble background and was talented. She was the most famous lady in the imperial city. It was not surprising that Ji Yurong liked her. However, whether this incident had anything to do with Chu Xianmin still needed to be investigated. Don't act rashly. Let's secretly investigate Chu Xianmin first. Mu Hongyu threw herself into a chair at the side and rested her chin on one hand. Sigh, this is a little difficult. You know that Chu Xianmin doesn't live in the academy now. After she married into the crown prince mansion, she went back every day. Under such circumstances, it will take a lot of effort to investigate her. The crown prince mansion was heavily guarded. Even if she had the ability, she would not be able to barge in. Chu Luiyue thought for a while. There's no hurry. Many people know that I went to the heavenly pharmacy to get medicine today. In addition, Mr. Zhuorong and the rest came here this afternoon. News will definitely spread. The person who poisoned me must be paying attention to the academy's movements. He definitely knows about this. I was wondering. Mu Hongyu clapped her hands and said excitedly, When I came back today, I heard that you were back. When I came back today, I heard a lot of people talking about you. They even mentioned Zhuorong Laosher. So, you did it on purpose. Are you trying to lure the snake out of its hole? A dark light flashed across Chu Luiyue's eyes. The enemy is in the dark and we are in the light. The disparity is huge. Since this is the case, why don't we take the initiative to attack? If the other party knows about this, they will definitely not sit back and do nothing. As long as they make a move, we will be able to find the culprit. Mu Hongyu looked at Chu Luiyue from head to toe in surprise. Tisk, Luiyue, it's no wonder you can teach those people from the Chu family a lesson. You're such an old schemer. Whoever goes up against you is really unlucky. Chu Luiyue's eyes twitched. Cunning. Mu Hongyu, do you know how to talk? I won't attack unless I'm attacked. She would not take the initiative to provoke anyone, but if anyone wanted to bully her, she would not be polite. Mu Hongyu nodded frantically in agreement, but then curled her lips. Let me tell you. That Chu Xianmin is very difficult to deal with. Although you've already taught her a lesson last time, she hasn't been obedient for long and she's already causing trouble again. You don't know this, but when everyone thought that you were doing something, Chu Xianmin actually ran to the teacher and told him that she wanted to replace your status as the top warrior and visit the Tianling dynasty's envoy. Previously, she had been immersed in grief, so she didn't know what had happened in the academy. Today she went out to ask around and found out. However, Chu Luiyue wasn't angry. Instead he laughed. Mu Hongyu asked in disbelief. You're not angry? That's the kind of person she is. I'd be surprised if she didn't do that. Chu Xinmin's current situation was so difficult. Of course, she had to think of a way to stand out. Even if this path didn't work, she would find another way. Mu Hongyu suddenly thought of something. She clasped her hands together and looked at Chu Luiyue pleadingly. That's true. Luyu, when you meet the Tianling dynasty's envoy, can you do me a favor? What's the matter? Mu Hongyu's face was tainted with a tinge of worry. My father sent a letter a few days ago saying that my mother's health hasn't been good recently. He heard that the Tianling dynasty's envoy is coming, so he wants me to beg them to see if they have a way to cure my mother. But where would I get the chance now? So, can you please? Chu Liwei paused in his actions. You seem to admire the Tianling dynasty a lot, right? They're just an envoy. Don't you think it's a little unrealistic to pin all your hopes on them? Mu Hongyu widened her eyes. Liu, that's the Tianling dynasty. It's a legendary existence. If even they can't do anything, then we can't do anything. Sai, do you know the Tianling dynasty's heavenly princess? Chu Liwei suddenly felt a little awkward. Seeing her expression, Mu Hongyu thought that she had never heard of her before, so she kindly added, Sai, actually, it's normal that you don't know. The Tianling dynasty has always been very mysterious. I've only heard a little about it from my father. Their heavenly princess is rumored to have a Tianjing Yuan meridian. She was born to be a top genius. Moreover, she was already a 5th-grade celestial physician when she was 10 years old. You have to know that there have only been a handful of celestial physicians in country Yaoqin for so many years. And those who have reached 5th grade are even rarer. Think about it, she's so amazing. Chu Liwei coughed and touched her nose. Sai, we can't be envious of this kind of person, but there's no need to be envious. That heavenly princess was good at everything, but in the end, didn't she die from qi deviation? At that time, she wasn't even 20 years old. Mu Hongyu sighed. Chu Liwei was suddenly stunned. Qi deviation. Qi deviation. She suppressed the surging emotions in her heart and asked, logically speaking, such a genius cultivation path should have been very smooth. How did she? Qi deviation? Mu Hongyu shrugged. How can this be confirmed? Anyway, that's what the rumors say. Otherwise, why would she die so suddenly? I heard that her fiancé was heartbroken. Chu Liu's heart suddenly thumped violently. Her mind was blank. She only stiffened and asked, That's what the rumors say? Yes. But I don't know anything more than that. Who knows what happened thousands of miles away? Sai Liu, you don't look too good. What's wrong? Chu Liwei came back to her senses and shook her head. I'm fine. It's just that I've been refining medicine for too long and I'm a little tired. Mu Hongyu was a little worried. Then can you still hold on? I'll stay here with you. Chu Liwei shook her head. No need. Go back and rest today. You have to continue investigating Ji Yurong tomorrow. Then? Okay. Mu Hongyu was also exhausted from running around all day. After hearing Chu Liu's words, she got up and left. When her figure disappeared outside the door, Chu Liu finally slowly let go of her hand. Because she used too much strength, her palm was already stained with blood. Just now, she almost couldn't control the crazy burning anger in her heart. Dying from qi deviation? Heartbroken. Those people are really capable of doing anything. These debts. She will pay them back 100 times. Digression. Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from the Love Network. Chapter 174. Night, Prince Li's mansion, study room. Rong Xiu stood in front of the bookshelf with his hands behind his back. He was carefully selecting books. Move all the books on the top 2 floors. Also, bring along the few biographies that this prince often reads. Umo responded and carefully put away the books one by one. Yan Qing looked at his master hesitantly. Master, are you really going to stay at Tianlu Academy? Rong Xiu glanced at him. What? Is there a problem? I don't dare. It's just that, there are too many people at Tianlu Academy. I'm afraid it won't be as convenient as before. Yan Qing did not expect his master to decide to go to Tianlu Academy after going to the palace. He was really caught off guard. Umo secretly gave him a look. Are you stupid? Others might not know why master is going to Tianlu Academy, but you should know better. Yan Qing felt a headache coming on. Ever since his master came back from Wanling Mountain a few days ago covered in blood and sat in the study room for an entire night, he knew his master would take action. However, he did not expect his master to take such drastic measures. Umo shook his head. How could they stop their master from doing anything he wanted? Yan Qing sighed heavily in his heart. What do you want to say? Just say it, Rong Xiu suddenly said. Yan Qing knew he could not hide his thoughts from his master, so he spoke bluntly. Master, if you're worried about Miss Liu, you can send more people to protect her secretly. Why do you have to do it yourself? The crown prince is under house arrest now, and the third prince is still in the imperial capital and has not returned to the Northwest Army. This is a critical time. It's really dangerous for you to suddenly make such a big move. Rong Xiu looked at him quietly. Anything else? Yan Qing hesitated and shook his head. He was mainly worried about his master's safety. Although he knew his master was powerful, it was not his master's style to put himself in danger. Since you're done, help you pack. Mistress. Yan Qing still wanted to fight for it, but when she saw Rong Xiu's expression, she knew it was useless to say anything, so she had to agree. Yes. Rong Xiu knocked on the table. She went to Heaven's Medicine Pavilion today? Why is there no movement from Yengu? Umo hurriedly said, Master, Yengu said that he did not receive any news from Miss Luyu. Thinking about it, it must be Miss Luyu who went to the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. Rong Xiu replied with a faint, Do you know what she wants those herbs for? The two of them looked at each other. I'm not too sure. Rong Xiu raised his eyebrows slightly. Previously, the Precious Treasure Pavilion had sent many gifts, which included many precious medicinal herbs. Chu Luiyue knew that if she wanted it, it would be more convenient for her to go to Zhenbao. But she had purposely gone to the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion. You really don't know? Yamo coughed. As expected, he could not hide it from his master. But this matter. He gritted his teeth and braced himself to say, I heard that Miss Luyu went to the Heaven's Medicine Pavilion to help a classmate recuperate. Rong Xiu leaned against the chair and crossed his fingers. His posture was lazy, but there was an indescribable sense of oppression. What kind of classmate? Umo closed his eyes and faced death calmly. His name is Liao Zhongshu. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire room fell silent. Rong Xiu's thin lips curved slightly. So it's a male classmate. The next morning, Chu Luiyue finally finished brewing the medicine. She placed it in a sealed jade box and planned to send it to Liao Zhongshu. But just as she reached the door, she saw Mu Hongyu running over excitedly. Luyu, big news. Chu Luiyue could not help but laugh. What kind of big news can make you so excited? Could it be that you have found some evidence? Mu Hongyu's face fell. No, it's not that easy. But she quickly cheered up again and her eyes lit up. Did you know? Princely came to Tianlu Academy today. Chu Luiyue's heart skipped a beat. Why is he here? Did he pass the exam and get in? Mu Hongyu did not notice that Chu Luiyue sounded familiar when she mentioned Princely. She thought that Chu Luiyue was just curious, so she chuckled. How is that possible? Princely is weak and sickly. Why would he take the exam? I heard that he came here to pay respects to his mother, Consort Wan. Consort Wan was a teacher at Tianlu Academy for a period of time, and she was not buried in the Imperial Mausoleum. That's why Princely came here. Chu Luiyue was a little surprised. Is this appropriate? What's inappropriate about it? The Dean and His Majesty must have agreed to this. That's why Princely came. You don't know, but Consort Wan only doted on the Imperial harem back then. Now that Princely wants to remember her, His Majesty naturally agreed. The Dean and Consort Wan seemed to have a good relationship back then. At this moment, Old Sun had already brought Princely into the academy. If not for the fact that we don't dare to openly join in the fun, we would have gone to take a look. Chu Luiyue's eyebrows twitched. What's there to see? How is it not nice? It's rumored in the Imperial City that Princely was born with first-class looks. Who knew how many women wanted to take a look at it? Hey Luyu, I remember that you and Princely both went to the Crown Prince's birthday banquet. You should have seen him, right? Quick, tell me. Is he as gentle as jade and unparalleled in the world as the rumors say? Chu Luiyue suddenly had the urge to facepalm. However, a devilish face appeared in her mind. She coughed. Just like that. Mu Hongyu was not satisfied with this answer. She clicked her tongue. I heard that Princely stepped forward to help you that day when Fourth Princess made things difficult for you. Don't tell me, you didn't have any thoughts? Chu Luiyue immediately said, How is that possible? Before she finished speaking, she saw a familiar tall figure out of the corner of her eye. Her words were suddenly stuck in her throat. Mu Hongyu asked curiously, Really? Of course it's true. Suddenly, a low and cold voice came from behind her. The tone was gentle, but there was a hint of laziness in it, like the spring water disturbed by the wind. After all, in Miss Luyu's eyes, I'm just like that. Isn't that right, Ms. Luiyue? Chapter 175. That person was dressed in a white robe that was spotless. His facial features were meticulously sculpted by the heavens. His eyes, in particular, were as deep and quiet as the starry night. They were pure and clean, but they also carried a hint of mystery. His thin, scarlet lips curled up slightly. His originally gentle, noble, and calm temperament had an additional hint of flirtatiousness. His gaze landed on Chu Luiyue, and his lips curled into a casual smile. Mu Hongyu was stunned for a moment before she finally reacted. Her eyes widened. Prince Li? Rong Xiu nodded slightly. Princess Yongping. Ever since Mu Hongyu came to the imperial capital and entered Tianlu Academy, she had been very low-key and rarely mentioned her identity. She had not heard the title Princess Yongping in a long time. Now that Rong Xiu mentioned it, she could not help but be stunned again. You know me? Rong Xiu smiled faintly. I've heard Miss Luyu mention you before. Now that I've met you, Princess Yongping, you are indeed straightforward and generous. You have the style of the Prince of Pingjiang. Mu Hongyu's mood instantly improved upon hearing this. She admired her father the most. When others praised him, she was even happier than when others praised her. She asked curiously, Prince Li has met my father before? Although I haven't had the chance to meet him, I've long heard of his great name. Mu Hongyu thought about it and agreed. Prince Li's health had been poor since he was young. He was sent to Mingyue Tianshan to recuperate. He had not even returned to the imperial capital a few times. How could he have gone so far to meet her father? However, it seemed like he had good taste. Mu Hongyu happily pulled Chu Liyue's sleeve and said softly, Luyu, your standards have also improved, right? I think Prince Li is quite good. Chu Liyue looked at her speechlessly. He really did not know when Mu Hongyu's brainless personality would change. She was bought over with just one sentence. In the future, she might even help others count the money when she was sold. Hey, he said you mentioned me in front of him. Are you close to him? Mu Hongyu suddenly thought of something and looked at Chu Liyue with a subtle gaze. You just said, His Highness has helped me a few times before. When I went to thank him, His Highness asked a few more questions about the academy, so I mentioned you. Chu Liyue said with a straight face. Who doesn't know how to lie? Since he deliberately exposed her, she didn't need to be polite. Mu Hongyu suddenly understood. No wonder. He must have wanted to come to the academy at that time. That's why he asked you those questions, right? The corners of Chu Liyue's eyes twitched. Rong Xiu calmly looked at the jade box in Chu Liyue's hand. Looks like you're busy. I won't disturb you any longer. Chu Liyue curtsied. Take care, Your Highness. Rong Xiu quietly glanced at her, then turned and left with Elder Sunday. Mu Hongyu couldn't help but rub her arms. Luyu, why do I suddenly feel a little cold? Chu Liyue coughed. Let's go. The medicine will turn cold if we stay any longer. The two quickly arrived at Liao Zhongshu's residence. Mu Hongyu stepped forward and was just about to knock when the door opened. Ji Yurong was standing inside. He had his usual gentle and harmless smile on his face. Zhongshu said that you would come today, so I've been waiting for you. Come in. Chu Liyue sized him up. Compared to the day before, he looked much more natural, as if there was nothing wrong with him. But this only proved that there was something wrong with him. Yesterday, Mu Hongyu secretly investigated him and didn't completely seal off the news. If he asked around, he would definitely find out. But today he didn't seem to be acting strangely. He was clearly trying to hide something. Mu Hongyu said with a faint smile. Oh, isn't this embarrassing? It must have been hard on you to take care of him these few days, right? We're just here to see him. Just go about your business. Ji Yurong's expression froze for a moment, but it quickly returned to normal. We're all friends and we live together. This is what I should do. Then, you can go up first. I'll make tea for you later. I didn't manage to serve you well when you came yesterday. You're so free today? Mu Hongyu crossed her arms. I remember that you originally had classes today, right? A hint of panic flashed across Ji Yurong's eyes. Oh, I took leave today. I used up my cultivation time in Juyo Tower, and I was planning to do some missions today. Mu Hongyu didn't comment. This is important. We won't hold you up. She was clearly asking him to leave. Ji Yurong was a little hesitant. Actually, it's not that urgent. I'm afraid that Zhongshu will. The two of us are here. Are you worried that we won't be able to take care of him? No. Then I'll take my leave first. Please go ahead. Ji Yurong knew that continuing would only make things worse. He could only leave unwillingly. After his figure disappeared, Mu Hongyu pursed her lips. Can't you think of something else if you want to spy on us? Chu Luiyue didn't say anything. He turned around and went upstairs. Liao Zhongshu's complexion looked worse than the day before, and he was even more dispirited. Mu Hongyu was shocked. Did he poison you again? Liao Zhongshu shook his head with difficulty. Ever since you told me yesterday, I haven't touched the things he sent over. Chu Luiyue checked his soup bowl. It was indeed clean. The red blood goose poison is very strong. Even if you don't poison it, the poison will get worse. In the later stages, it will be defeated like a landslide. As Chu Luiyue spoke, he took out the medicine from the jade box. A strong medicinal fragrance spread out. Mu Hongyu took a deep breath and immediately felt comfortable. Chu Luiyue handed it to Liao Zhongshu. This medicine can only help you suppress the poison for now. As for the antidote, we'll think of something else. Liao Zhongshu didn't say anything. He took the medicine and drank it in one gulp. You trust us, Chu Luiyue said. A weak but sincere smile appeared on Liao Zhongshu's pale face. In my current state, who else can I trust if not you? They were friends who had gone through life and death together. Besides, this was his only choice. Rest first. Hongyu and I will go and check again. Liao Zhongshu nodded. Sorry to trouble you. I really don't know how to repay this friendship. Luyu, Hongyu, we're back. Before Liao Zhongshu could finish speaking, Xinhu's voice came from downstairs. Chu Luiyue let Liao Zhongshu rest alone and walked out with Mu Hongyu. When they reached the first floor, they saw Xinhu and Gu Mingfeng. Gu Mingfeng's face was injured. It looked like he had been through a lot in the past 2 days. Mu Hongyu was shocked and quickly walked forward. Mingfeng, what happened to you? Gu Mingfeng looked down. It's just a small injury. How is this a small injury? It was obvious that he had been beaten to death. Gu Mingfeng didn't say anything. He clearly didn't want to talk about it. He didn't want to meet Chu Luiyue and Xinhu with such a face, but Xinhu dragged him along. Chu Luiyue only took one look before she retracted her gaze and asked in understanding. Was it done by someone from the Gu family? A better reading experience came from the Love Network. Chapter 176. Gu Mingfeng didn't say anything, but his silence was a confirmation. Why did the Gu family treat you so harshly? Mu Hongyu was shocked. No matter what, Gu Mingfeng was still a member of the Gu family. Why did they do this? Although she knew that Gu Mingfeng wasn't well liked in the Gu family and was treated very differently from Gu Mingzhu, it was too much to chase him out and treat him like this. She really didn't understand why Gu Yunfei hated Gu Mingfeng so much, even though they were both his children. Gu Mingfeng calmly said, They just can't stand me. I'm already used to it. Chu Luiyue stared at him for a while. After confirming that there was no sadness in his eyes, she couldn't help but laugh. It's better to leave a family like this than to stay. It's a good thing to cut your losses in time. When Liao Zhongshu gets better, let's go to Phoenix Restaurant to celebrate. Gu Mingfeng didn't expect Chu Luiyue to be so straightforward, but her expression was very sincere. That's right. She cut ties with the family before me. Although Chu Luiyue cut ties with the family and I was chased out, the outcome was similar. Gu Mingfeng suddenly felt relieved, and he inexplicably felt much more relaxed. He exhaled. Xinhu asked, All right. What did you say about Zhongshu? He had been outside for a day and night, so he didn't know what had happened in the academy. Chu Liwei calmly scanned the surroundings. It's hard to explain in a few sentences. I'll tell you in detail when we have time. Sinhu, go back with Gu Mingfeng to recuperate first. If there's any news, Hong Yu and I will immediately inform you. Sinhu didn't suspect anything and readily agreed. Gu Mingfeng frowned but didn't say anything. Look, that's where your mother lived back then. Elder Sun walked with Rong Xiu while introducing the academy. Rong Xiu followed his gaze and saw a river meandering past. At the foot of the mountain where the river flowed, there was a quiet courtyard. The place where she lives is slightly to the side where the Shen Master students live. She likes peace and quiet, and the students respect and like her, so although they are very close to her, they rarely disturb her. As Elder Sun spoke, he thought of that gentle and generous woman. Oh right, you should know that your mother is a mystic cultivator. She also teaches mystic cultivators here, right? Rong Xiu nodded. Father mentioned it before. Elder Sun shook his head and sighed. Your mother is extremely talented as a mystic cultivator. If she had a few more years, it would not be impossible for her to become a top-notch mystic cultivator. Unfortunately, she passed away after staying here for 2 years. Even Rong Xiu, who was sent to Mingyue Tianshan not long after he was born, had only seen her a few times. As they spoke, the two of them arrived in front of the courtyard. Above the door hung a peachwood sign with a few small words engraved on it. Yifeng Courtyard. This signboard was personally carved by her. Elder Sun looked at Rong Xiu. No one has been here for many years. When I heard that you were coming, I originally wanted to send someone to clean it up, but after thinking about it, these are her old belongings, so I'll leave everything to you. Thank you for your understanding, Elder Sunday. It's a small matter, no need to thank me. Then, this old man will take his leave first. Take care, Elder Sunday. After Elder Sun left, Rong Xiu pushed open the door and entered. Yifeng Courtyard was not big, but everything was exquisite and elegant. One could see the taste of the people who lived here back then. The courtyard did not have flowers and plants like ordinary people. Instead, there was a peach tree with luxuriant leaves. There was a rattan chair under the peach tree, and a tea set was placed on the limestone slab next to it. Rong Xiu waved his sleeve, sweeping off the dust on the rattan chair and lying down. The rattan chair creaked as no one sat on it for a long time. Rong Xiu closed his eyes. A gentle breeze blew past, sweeping up the corners of his snow-white clothes. A few green leaves drifted down and scattered on his face and body. In particular, a small thin leaf was pressed against his thin scarlet lips. The two colors complemented each other, as beautiful as a painting. Chu Liwei saw this scene when she walked across the Shuangqing River Bridge. She and Mu Hongyu had split up and planned to come back to get something first. Before she walked back to her residence, her eyes were attracted by the scenery. Yifeng Courtyard was not very far from the bridge, so Chu Liwei could see it very clearly. She blinked. She had noticed that courtyard before. No one had ever gone there, so it was very quiet. Was that the place where Rong Xiu's mother lived when she was alive? Her eyes swept across Rong Xiu's face. Under the sunlight, his skin was like jade, even a little translucent. His eyebrows and eyes were picturesque, his nose was high, and the lines of his cheeks were smooth. There was no part of him that was not the best. Such a person was simply blessed by the heavens to be able to have such an appearance and charm. Chu Liwei suddenly remembered her previous evaluation of him. Just like that. She suddenly felt a little guilty. If this didn't count as anything, then no one in this world was qualified to say that it was good-looking. As if sensing her gaze, Rong Xiu's eyelashes trembled. He suddenly opened his eyes and looked over. The two of them looked at each other. He seemed to have taken a nap under the tree for a while. His eyes still had a bit of laziness and confusion, but his eyes were clear and pure. Chu Liwei seemed to have been caught red-handed doing something wrong, so she subconsciously looked away. But as soon as she turned her head, she regretted it. Didn't this make it seem like there was something wrong with her? She didn't feel anything when the two of them were together day and night. Why did she feel that something was wrong with him now? If she left now, she might be laughed at by Rong Xiu for running away. Thinking of this, Chu Liwei gritted her teeth and looked back again. She wanted to use her eyes to kill him. What's wrong with looking? He was lying here. Anyone who passed by would be able to see him, right? There was nothing wrong with her taking a look. Suddenly, a few women's voices came from behind. Wait, that's His Highness Prince Li? Seems like it. Just like the rumors, his appearance and bearing are unparalleled. He seems to live there? It's not far from us. Ch. Lower your voice. Aren't you afraid of being heard? Can't you be more reserved? Even if she didn't look back to see who it wasn't hard to imagine the admiration and excitement of these people. Chu Liyue suddenly felt a little irritable. This guy isn't lying there on purpose, is he? His Highness Princely doesn't mind being looked at by so many passers-by? Thinking of this, her eyes unconsciously carried some annoyance. Rong Xiu looked at her. Suddenly, his thin lips opened slightly, sucking on the thin leaf. Digression. Yesterday I couldn't sleep until 3 o'clock. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'll update 3 chapters. Not 3 chapters of the 3rd chapter, but 3 chapters of the 3rd chapter. When I say 10 chapters, I'll find a new one. Chapter 177. From Chu Liyue's angle, she could clearly see the tip of his tongue sticking out slightly as he sucked the leaf into his mouth. His actions were so ambiguous, but his eyes were still pure and clean. It was as if he did not feel that what he was doing was so full. Chu Liyue's face suddenly heated up. Too much. Not only did he secretly climb into her bed in the middle of the night, but he actually dared to seduce her in public now. Not only did he seduce her, but there were other people behind him. Chu Liyue instinctively looked back and realized that the girls who had spoken earlier did not see what Rong Xiu was doing, probably because they were in a more secluded position. For some reason, she suddenly heaved a sigh of relief in her heart, but her chest still felt as if it was blocked by something. She pursed her lips and decisively looked away as she walked back to her room. Bang! The door was slammed shut. As Rong Xiu watched, the corners of his eyes suddenly turned into a smile. Was he angry? Chu Liyue returned to her room to look for something, but the scene just now still lingered in her mind. She felt an inexplicable frustration in her heart that even she could not explain. She simply went up to the 2nd floor to calm herself down. However, as soon as she opened the window, she saw Rong Xiu again. His room was not far from hers, so she could actually see him from the 2nd floor. Chu Liyue felt even more frustrated, so she could only close the window. Rong Xiu's arrival at Tianlu Academy was too sudden and unexpected. Previously, he had claimed to be sick and stayed in Prince Li's mansion. He did not even go out, and he had tactfully rejected all the visits from various families. Everyone in the imperial city knew that Prince Li was frail and sickly. He could not be exposed to the wind and even rarely saw people. He clearly had his own reasons for doing so. However, why did he come to the academy now? Wasn't he putting himself out in the open? Chu Liyue faintly had a guess in her heart, but she did not dare to believe it. Rong Xiu could not be doing this for her shoulders sank and a furry thing jumped onto her. Chu Liyue glanced at it. You're awake. The little thing stretched and nodded with a satisfied expression. Chu Liyue could not help but laugh as she pinched its ears. You can really sleep. After returning from Wan Spirit Mountain, this little thing had fallen into a deep sleep for 2 days and nights. Chu Liyue picked it up and checked it carefully. She was a little surprised. Have you recovered from your injuries? Although it had not been seriously injured, there were a few scars on its body. In just 2 days, the scars, the wounds, and the scars. They were not scabs, but they were completely healed. It was as if it had never been hurt. It says Liu as its black was the black. The little thing blinked. I don't remember the Blood Marten race having such a strong recovery ability. Chu Liyue's in her previous life, she had seen some noble ladies raise blood ferrets, but they were all pets. Because they were very weak, they were usually carefully protected. But this one, since you're following me, I have to give you a name. How about Xiaochang? The little thing instantly bared its teeth and waved its claws frantically. No. It still wanted to come out and make a living. Chu Liyue looked at it and added seriously, Look, you're so resistant. This name is the most suitable, right? No. The little thing rolled its eyes and pretended to be dead. Chu Liyue shook it. Since you don't like it, we'll change it. How about Dumpling? The little thing's legs straightened and it closed its eyes, refusing to wake up and face this terrible world. Since you've agreed, we'll settle on this. The little thing opened its eyes instantly. Chu Liyue pressed its head. It's too late. Dumpling shut its mouth, feeling wronged. Forget it. With such a master, what else can I hope for? Chu Liyue looked at it, and a hint of doubt flashed in her heart. Blood ferrets were only 3rd-grade fiends. Logically speaking, their intelligence was only equivalent to a 1-year-old child. But this one was obviously much smarter. There were a lot of mysteries about it. Knock knock. There was a knock on the door downstairs. Chu Liyue went downstairs and opened the door in confusion. It was Si Yang, whom she had not seen for a long time. Si Yang? Why are you here? When Si Yang saw her, he hurriedly went forward and looked at her carefully. Luyu, are you really okay? You're too powerful. He couldn't believe it when he heard the news. Now that he saw it with his own eyes, he was even more shocked. They knew how dangerous Wanling Mountain was at that time. Chu Luiyue actually came back alive alone. Actually, I wanted to come yesterday, but something came up at the last minute at home, so I was late. Chu Luiyue didn't mind and smiled. I'm fine. Si Yang looked at Dumpling on her shoulder and was a little surprised. Isn't this a blood ferret? When did you have this with you? I met it by chance at Wanling Mountain and brought it back because I liked it. What? You kept it? Luyu, although this blood ferret is cute, it's very weak in combat. It's quite troublesome to bring it around. Dumpling opened its eyes before Si Yang could finish his sentence. Chu Luiyue originally thought that it would explode, but she did not expect it to just glance at Si Yang coldly before closing its eyes again. It swept its tail as if it did not care about Si Yang at all. Si Yang's mouth twitched. It was looking down on me? Chu Luiyue nodded in agreement. It's very obvious. Si Yang suddenly felt a little doubtful. A mere third-grade blood ferret actually looked down on him? Chu Luiyue asked, why did you ask me to come here today? Si Yang looked at Dumpling angrily and said, yes. You missed class 2 days ago, so Mr. Dongfang asked me to ask you if you want to participate in the Qin Jiao competition, in half a month. Qin Jiao competition? You don't know? It's the Mystic Master competition that's held every year. At that time, the neighboring nation of Huaicang and nation of Xingluo will also send their youngest geniuses to compete. This Qin Jiao competition is very grand, and the prizes have always been very generous. Do you want to participate in the Mystic Master competition? Mobile users, please browse and read. A better reading experience comes from Love Network. Chapter 178. Chu Luiyue was not very interested. He was about to reject Si Yang when he thought about it and asked, what are the rewards? What are the rewards? Si Yang chuckled. That's amazing. The Qin Jiao competition is organized by the top academies in 3 countries. Other than Tianlu Academy, there's also country Huaicang's Nanfeng Academy and country Xingluo's Taiyan Academy. It's our turn to be the host this year. According to the rules, other than the usual rewards, the most important thing is that the Xian Master Champion of the Qin Jiao competition can choose one of the 3 academies to read Xian formation drawings for free for a month. Think about it, how big of a deal is this? These 3 academies were the top academies in their respective countries. Which one of them did not have a vast collection of books? To be able to read Shen formation drawings for free for a month was a huge temptation to any Shen master. Chu Liyue was deep in thought. The rewards are indeed quite generous. Help me tell Mr. Dongfang that I'll participate in the Qingjiao competition. That's right. Although there are still seniors above us and it's impossible for us to get first place, you're the top Shen master in our batch. Of course you have to show up. As Si Yang spoke, he suddenly thought of something and asked curiously, "Oh, right. Since you're participating in the Shen master competition, then, are you still going to the warrior competition?" Chu Liyue could not help but laugh when he saw Si Yang's gossipy expression. "Is there a difference whether I go or not?" "Of course." Si Yang raised his voice. "If you don't go, won't Chu Xianmin stir up trouble again? I see that she's been cultivating diligently recently and is trying her best to get back at her." Chu Liyue suddenly remembered Mu Hongyu mentioning that Chu Xianmin thought that she was dead and wanted to replace her as the warrior competition's champion. Can one person only participate in one competition? Of course not. If you're willing, you can sign up for 2 or 3 competitions. It's not a problem. Chu Liyue nodded in understanding. Then I'll think about it. Aya, what are you thinking about? Don't tell me you still care about the sisterhood of the Chu family? She has already married into the Crown Prince's residence and is considered one of the Crown Prince's people. Chu Liyue's heart skipped a beat, and he fixed his gaze on him. What does this have to do with her marrying into the Crown Prince's residence? This. I was just saying it in passing. Cough cough. Si Yang realized that he had let the cat out of the bag, so he immediately avoided Chu Liyue's scrutinizing gaze. Chu Liyue thought to himself. Everyone knew that she had severed ties with the Chu family, and not long ago she had exposed Lu Yao in public. Anyone could see that she had completely fallen out with the Chu family. Why would she care about the so-called sisterhood? Chu Liyue smiled faintly. Si Yang, you don't want to ask about my relationship with Chu Xianmin but my attitude toward the Crown Prince, right? Where do I have it? Si Yang did not expect Chu Liyue to guess his question right away. He immediately denied it. However, his voice was trembling and his gaze was erratic. Anyone could tell that Si Yang was right. Chu Liyue was not angry. She was just a little curious. I have nothing to do with the Crown Prince for a long time. Why are you so curious about this? Si Yang coughed to cover it up. I was just asking. Didn't you like the Crown Prince a lot in the past? The last sentence was very soft, but Chu Liyue still heard it clearly. Looking at Si Yang's expression, she suddenly realized something. My feelings for the Crown Prince don't seem to have anything to do with you, right? But my brother? Si Yang was halfway through his sentence when he suddenly realized something and hurriedly covered his mouth. Chu Liyue's expression darkened. I've already told Si Ting before that we are just classmates, and I don't want to have too much contact with him. It seems like he didn't listen. No. I was the one who made the decision to ask. As Si Yang spoke, he suddenly froze. Wait, you said that you've already talked about this? Most importantly, his brother had already been rejected. No wonder. No wonder when he heard that Chu Liyue was back and asked his brother to take a look, his brother's attitude was very cold. So it was because Chu Liyue narrowed her eyes. It seemed that Si Yang had indeed come on his own accord. Let's forget about this. Don't mention it again. With that, Chu Liyue was about to leave. Si Yang hurriedly went forward to stop her and asked awkwardly, Why? My brother is sincere to you. Why won't you consider it? Si Ting was handsome, came from a noble family and was very talented. Many girls in the capital city wanted to win his favor. However, Si Ting had never been interested in any girl. Now he had finally fallen in love with someone but he had been rejected so bluntly? Si Yang could not understand. How is my brother not good enough for you? Chu Liyue looked calm. This is not a matter of whether he's good enough for you or not. It's a matter of whether I want you or not. Si Ting was very good but she did not like him. Therefore, she might as well cut off the relationship from the beginning. Also, Si Ting and I have already reached an agreement. This is already in the past. You don't have to. Why is it in the past? If it is in the past, why did he risk his life to save you at Wanling Mountain that day? Si Yang finally could not help but blurt out. The surroundings suddenly quietened down. Chu Liyue frowned slightly. Si Ting also went to save her that day? I don't know about this. Si Yang turned away. He went with old Master Sun that day. However, when they reached the foot of the mountain they met Mu Hongyu and the rest first. Old Master Sun then asked him to stay with them. I know that this may not have helped you but since he was willing to make such a choice, It proved that Si Ting was willing to risk his life for her. Chu Luiyue suddenly felt that it was a little difficult. She hated owing people favors, especially this kind of thing. However, Si Ting did it to save her, so she could not say anything. I got it. I will find a chance to thank him personally later. As for the rest, forget it. When Si Yang heard this, he suddenly felt uncomfortable. He made up his mind. If you don't agree now, you might regret it in the future. I won't regret it. How do you know? When it comes to relationships, Chu Liwei was a little impatient. Because I already have someone I like. Translator. Endless Fantasy Translation Editor. Endless Fantasy Translation. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.